It always begins with silence. Not the kind of silence that soothes, but the kind that presses against the walls of your skull, that stretches thin across the bones of forgotten time. Picture a sun-bleached desert somewhere in the middle of no place even maps have stopped naming. The wind stirs lightly across the sand, brushing away centuries of slumber with each whisper. Then, suddenly, a glint beneath the dune, like a buried eye opening slowly. Someone kneels down, digs, and uncovers something that defies everything we thought we knew about our past. History, they say, is written by the victors. But what if some truths were never written at all? What if they were carved in stone, buried in ash, sealed behind tombs, or scattered across mountaintops, left for time to erase and only madness or accident to reveal again? Across the centuries, archaeologists, farmers, construction workers, even curious children, have stumbled upon discoveries so confounding, so out of place they threaten to tear the neatly stitched fabric of our history to shreds. These are not mere relics. These are echoes of something older than time as we know it. Objects and sites that whisper of lost civilizations, impossible knowledge, and perhaps even ancient contacts from beyond this earth. In this long journey through the shadows of forgotten empires and unexplainable artifacts, we won't just visit, dig sites, or brush off fossils. No. We will sit beside the firelight with ancient astronomers who knew the precise movements of stars thousands of years before telescopes existed. We will descend into labyrinths that were engineered with geometrical precision our modern tools still marvel at. We will hold artifacts in our hands that seem to pulse with a knowledge humanity was not supposed to have, not then, and perhaps not even now. Our journey begins in a place not often spoken of with awe, yet in its soil lies a story older than the pyramids. A quiet village nestled on the banks of the Tigris River in southeastern Turkey, called Göbekli Tepe. For millennia, this hill was just a hill bare, desolate, windblown, but in the 1990s, a Kurdish shepherd stumbled upon a peculiar stone sticking out of the earth. It looked too deliberate to be natural. What followed was a slow revelation that would shatter everything we thought we knew about the birth of civilization. Excavations revealed towering megaliths arranged in circles, each weighing multiple tons, adorned with carvings of foxes, scorpions, vultures, and abstract symbols. But what truly set Göbekli Tepe apart was its age. Radiocarbon dating pushed it back to around 9600 BCE. That's over 11,000 years ago. More than 6,000 years older than Stonehenge and the Egyptian pyramids. This wasn't supposed to exist. Our ancestors at that time were supposed to be simple hunter-gatherers, too primitive to build temples, too transient to settle, too concerned with survival to create sacred spaces. And yet, here it was, an ancient cathedral from the edge of the Ice Age. What's even more astonishing is that Göbekli Tepe was not just abandoned, it was buried deliberately. The entire site had been entombed under tons of backfill, almost lovingly preserved for some unknown future. But why? Who were these people who gathered together, without pottery, without the wheel, without metal tools, and erected a ceremonial site that required hundreds of workers and astronomical understanding? What god or belief moved them to carve these stones with such precision? And what secret made them bury it so carefully? Some researchers now argue that Göbekli Tepe was the cradle of organized religion, a spiritual center that gave birth to the idea of gods and sacred space, before cities and kings and written laws. Others speculate that the knowledge required to construct it could not have come from any local culture. It must have been imported, taught perhaps by remnants of an even older civilization lost in time. More radical thinkers point to a tantalizing theory that this could be a remnant of a pre-cataclysmic world, a survivor of the so-called Younger Dryas impact event, a cosmic collision that may have wiped out much of humanity around 10,800 BCE. Was Göbekli Tepe an ark of knowledge, built by survivors of a forgotten golden age? As excavations continue, what lies beneath the soil may yet change the story again. Only a small portion of the site has been unearthed, less than 10%. Beneath the unexplored mounds may rest entire layers of even earlier construction. Perhaps what we see now was built atop something even older, more mysterious. The deeper they dig, the deeper the questions go. From the warm winds of Anatolia, our journey moves west to the Emerald Hills of Ireland, where a different kind of silence guards a different kind of monument. It is called Newgrange, a Neolithic passage tomb built around 3200 BCE, older than both the pyramids and Stonehenge. From the outside, it looks like a grassy mound, but hidden beneath its layers lies a passageway that stretches deep into the earth, ending in a chamber that remains dry and untouched by water for over 5,000 years. And then there is the light. Each year, on the winter solstice, a single ray of sunrise pierces the roof box above the doorway and travels down the narrow passage to illuminate the central chamber. For 17 minutes, the light dances across the carved stones, a spectacle that only happens on that one day, at that one time. To align such a structure with the sun's exact position requires astronomical knowledge and architectural skill that seem absurd for a culture supposedly lacking advanced tools. Who taught them to read the sky with such precision? How did they shape and move massive stones without the aid of wheels or metal? And most importantly, why inside Newgrange, the carvings speak of spirals and labyrinths, solar motifs and mysterious symbols whose meanings are long lost. It was a tomb, yes, but it was more than that. It was a calendar, a temple, a clock embedded in stone. Were the builders marking the rebirth of the sun, performing rituals to summon the light in the darkest hour of the year? Or was this an inheritance, some long memory passed down from an even older time, when the heavens were worshipped as gods, and those who could interpret them were seen as divine? Further east, beneath the scorching Egyptian sun, the Nile whispers another ancient secret. We all know the Great Pyramid of Giza, iconic, immutable, awe-inspiring, but what many forget is this. Despite centuries of study, we still don't truly know how it was built. The pyramid contains over 2 million stone blocks, some weighing as much as 80 tons, placed with such accuracy that even today, razor blades cannot slide between the joints. The base of the pyramid is almost perfectly level, differing by only a fraction of an inch across its massive footprint. And it is aligned to true north with incredible precision, something we only recently achieved using GPS technology. But here is the strange part. The official explanation suggests that a society lacking iron tools, pulley systems, or even the wheel somehow constructed this marvel in just 20 years. Imagine the scale of that. It would require placing one massive block every 2 minutes, day and night, without pause, for 2 decades. Is that even humanly possible? Then there are the shafts inside the pyramid, narrow tunnels that align not randomly, but with specific stars in Orion's belt and the constellation of Sirius. This wasn't just a tomb, it was a cosmic monument, a machine of stone calibrated to the heavens. Was it meant to aid the pharaoh's soul in reaching the afterlife, or was it something more? A message, a warning, a key. Some researchers believe the pyramids were already ancient when the Egyptians inherited them. Theories persist that the Sphinx, eroded by water patterns inconsistent with desert weather, may be much older than the pyramids themselves. Could we be looking not at the creations of one civilization, but the remnants of multiple ages of Mansum? Forgotten, others erased. From Turkey to Ireland, Egypt to beyond, the ancient world hums with riddles etched into stone, buried beneath dust, and hidden in plain sight. With every discovery, the timeline shifts, the narrative bends, and we are forced to ask, what else have we missed? Our exploration is far from over. In the coming moments, we will travel to the frozen depths of Siberia, where perfectly preserved mammoths lie buried alongside evidence of ancient human technology. We'll enter the dark heart of the Amazon jungle, where satellite scans have revealed the geometric outlines of cities lost for millennia, and will descend into the mythic sunken cities beneath the waves. Ruins that defy our understanding of time itself, because history, as we know it, is not a straight line, it is a spiral. And the deeper we go, the more the spiral twists. This is only the beginning. The frost clings tightly to the earth in the endless white expanse of Siberia, a land so vast and silent that time itself seems to sleep beneath its icy crust. But just beneath that silence, locked away in permafrost for tens of thousands of years, the earth has been keeping secrets that should have been long forgotten. In the early 20th century, Russian scientists working along the Yana River stumbled upon something that defied all expectations: the frozen remains of a woolly mammoth, its flesh and organs astonishingly preserved, its fur still matted with ice-aged wind. But more startling than the mammoth itself were the signs around it: clearly worked stone tools, evidence of human butchery, and makeshift structures that spoke not of nomadic wanderers, but of organized, intelligent beings who lived and thrived in conditions we once believed utterly inhospitable. This wasn't a one-off miracle. As the Siberian ice continues to thaw due to climate shifts, more and more such remains are being unearthed, entire ecosystems frozen in mid-motion, alongside what appears to be ancient human interference. Spear points embedded in ancient bones, campfire ash in layers of ancient soil, even signs of rudimentary craftsmanship. The implications are staggering. Either human civilization existed far earlier than previously believed, or there were other intelligent hominids, perhaps even unknown branches of humanity, surviving and innovating in these frozen lands tens of thousands of years ago. Some sites now suggest permanent human presence in Siberia going back over 30,000 years, long before mainstream archaeology places organized human life in such latitudes. And what's more certain, artifacts recovered from the thawed layers have raised even darker questions. In 1991, Russian geologists examining the Ural Mountains uncovered what they believed to be metallic microobjects embedded in 100,000-year-old strata. Among them were coiled spirals of tungsten and molybdenum, metals that require extraordinarily high temperatures to shape, and microstructures that bore uncanny resemblance to modern-day nano-components. At first, these finds were dismissed as contamination, but as similar microspirals were found at various depths and in different locations, often buried deeply in geological layers predating known human tool used, multiplied. Could an unknown civilization, or even a completely separate form of intelligence, have existed before us? If so, where are they now? And why is their technology so miniature, so precise, and so deliberately hidden in places no modern hand could have touched? Skeptics argue that such objects must be natural formations or misidentified modern pollutants. But as more examples turn up in remote, untouched locations, the possibility begins to gnaw at the edges of accepted truth. What if we are not the first species to rise to technological power? What if time is deeper and more treacherous than we ever imagined, layered not just with dirt and stone, but with forgotten epochs and buried dreams? Thousands of miles to the southwest, the thick green arteries of the Amazon River pulse through a jungle long thought to be untouched wilderness. For centuries, explorers described the Amazon as a green desert, hostile, uninhabitable, and sparsely populated. That view began to change dramatically in the 21st century. Not by digging with shovels, but by peering through the treetops with satellites. Using LiDAR, a laser scanning technology that strips away foliage to reveal the ground beneath, researchers began uncovering symmetrical patterns carved into the Earth, massive geometric earthworks, square and circular formations, and signs of sophisticated city planning hidden beneath the jungle canopy. In 2018, an international team revealed that hundreds of these geoglyphs had been located in the upper Amazon basin. Roads, canals, causeways, bridges, entire, forgotten cities beneath the vines. Some researchers now estimate that pre-Columbian Amazonia may have supported more than 10 million people, organized into networks of towns and ceremonial centers, each linked by an infrastructure that suggests long-distance governance and shared cultural identity. How did these civilizations vanish so completely? What diseases, conquests, or catastrophes wiped their achievements from the map? More curiously, why do so many of these cities align with astronomical patterns, tracing the solstices, mapping lunar cycles, echoing the heavens? It's almost as if the jungle was once a living calendar, its people not just engineers but cosmologists, embedding the sky into the soil. Some of the carvings, when viewed from above, depict shapes with mathematical ratios and alignments that eerily match structures found in Mesoamerica and even Southeast Asia. Could it be that these distant cultures shared something deeper than trade, perhaps an ancient root, a source now lost beneath centuries of vines and silence? And speaking of silence, there is perhaps no silence as deep, no stillness as final, as the one found beneath the ocean. The sea is a graveyard of civilizations. As water levels have risen and fallen across millennia, entire cities, cultures, and histories have drowned. But some refuse to remain hidden. Off the coast of India, near the Gulf of Kamhat, lies one of the most debated underwater discoveries of the modern era. In the early 2000s, sonar scanning revealed symmetrical patterns on the seabed, regularly spaced structures, linear foundations, what appeared to be city-like grids submerged 120 feet below the water's surface. Diving expeditions retrieved pottery shards, carved stones, fossilized bones materials that, when carbon dated, suggested ages as old as 9,000 years. If confirmed, these ruins would predate the Indus Valley civilization by several millennia, making them the oldest urban site in the world. Yet official recognition remains elusive. Critics argue the site lacks proper excavation, that geological formations can be deceptive, but the tantalizing evidence refuses to vanish. Some ancient Hindu texts describe great cities swallowed by the sea myths that were always assumed to be metaphorical, but what if they weren't? What if the Mahabharata's tales of cities shining like the sun and rising from the ocean depths held a kernel of literal truth? These sunken cities are not unique to India. Off the coast of Cuba, sonar images in 2001 revealed massive symmetrical blocks and pyramidal shapes, 2,200 feet beneath the Caribbean. The patterns were not random. They resembled roads and platforms, stone terraces and monumental shapes that did not belong on the ocean floor. Even deeper and more remote, Japan's Yonaguni Monument stirs fierce debate. Discovered off the coast of Okinawa in the 1980s, the Yonaguni Formation resembles a step pyramid or ziggurat's terraces carved at perfect right angles, its edges unnaturally sharp, with vertical shafts and even what some claim are inscriptions or figurative carvings. Mainstream geology insists Yonaguni is a natural formation, shaped by tectonic activity and erosion. But underwater archaeologists like Masaki Kimura argue otherwise. Kimura has mapped what he believes to be roads, stairs, gates, and even a stadium-like arena. If he's right, this site could be at least 10,000 years old again, pushing back the dawn of civilization by thousands of years. Were these early civilizations wiped out by a cataclysm, a rising sea, a comet strike? Is this why their stories survived only in myth tales of Atlantis, of Lemuria, of lands that once touched the heavens but now sleep beneath the waves? The deeper we dive into these discoveries, the more the patterns seem to repeat. Advanced knowledge in times where no such knowledge should have existed. Astronomical alignment without telescopes. Megalithic construction without cranes or pulleys. Global similarities in design, structure, and myth across civilizations supposedly isolated by oceans and time. What are we to make of it all? The conventional model of history insists that civilization is a recent phenomena, blink in the vast eye of time, a slow climb from ignorance to knowledge. But the evidence suggests otherwise. It suggests rise and fall, light, then dark. Perhaps humanity has climbed this ladder before, perhaps more than once only, to be thrown back into chaos by disasters so vast their scars became our myths back on land. In the vast plains of Bolivia lies a ruin known as Puma Punku, part of the Tiwanaku complex. Unlike most ancient sites, Puma Punku is not just impressive, it is baffling. Scattered across its grounds are massive blocks of andesite and diorite, some weighing over 100 tons. These stones are cut with such accuracy, such smoothness, that modern engineers struggle to replicate the techniques even with advanced tools. But what's most perplexing are the H-shaped stones interlocking modules carved with perfect symmetry and precision, featuring right angles, drill holes, and sharp internal corners that appear machine-made. No one knows how these stones were transported, shaped, or assembled. The civilization responsible left no writing, no tools, no clear explanation. Carbon dating of surrounding organic material suggests activity as early as 15,000 years ago. Again, long before humanity was supposed to know how to do any of this. The sheer scale and perfection of the stonework seems to point to a lost knowledge. One that was erased or hidden, perhaps deliberately. Was there once a civilization, not merely ancient, but prehistoric, capable of things we no longer understand? A people who aligned their cities with the stars, who mapped the globe, who carved the earth and spoke to the heavens, and who were erased, leaving behind only fragments and questions. If so, their legacy is not gone. It is still out there, in the buried temples and submerged cities, in the encoded geometry of forgotten monuments, in the silent faces of statues. The sands of time are never still. They drift, they cover, they reveal, and in the ancient heart of the Middle East, where civilization itself first stirred into waking, the shifting dunes have occasionally parted to reveal stories far stranger than those etched in scripture. In southern Iraq, not far from the ruins of Babylon, lies the city of Ur, once the flourishing capital of the Sumerian world. It was here that ziggurats rose like stairways to heaven, where scribes first pressed cuneiform into wet clay, and where kings traced their lineage back to gods. But buried deep within the records of this early civilization are tales and artifacts that suggest the Sumerians may not have been the beginning of history, but merely its most articulate survivors. Among the most confounding of their relics is a small, unassuming artifact known as the Baghdad Battery. Discovered in modern-day Iraq and dated to approximately 250 BCE, it consists of a clay jar, a copper cylinder, and an iron rod components which, when assembled and filled with an acidic solution, such as vinegar or grape juice, can produce an electrical charge. While its exact purpose remains speculative, some researchers suggest it could have been used for electroplating objects in gold or silver, or even for medicinal or ritualistic applications. But the real question isn't what it was, for it's how. How did an ancient society, supposedly unfamiliar with electricity, craft an object whose design parallels the basic function of a modern battery? Was it an isolated experiment, a rediscovery of a lost science, or a whisper from a deeper, older technology buried beneath the sands of known history? The implications go beyond the object itself. If the Baghdad Battery was not a fluke, it may indicate a continuity of knowledge stretching back to cultures whose traces have all but vanished. Civilizations that fell, not due to ignorance, but from catastrophes, invasions, or cycles of collapse that swept away all but the faintest echoes of their achievements. Further south, beneath the waters of the Persian Gulf, lies yet another mystery. According to various flood myths of the region, including the Epic of Gilgamesh and even older Sumerian texts, there once existed a great city swallowed by the sea. The story tells of a deluge sent by gods to punish mankind, of a chosen man who builds a boat to save the seed of life. Long dismissed as symbolic, these myths have gained new interest following oceanographic studies revealing that during the last ice age, sea levels were hundreds of feet lower and the Persian Gulf was a lush river valley, not a sea. Could the stories of the flood and the sunken cities of early Mesopotamia be rooted in real events? And if so, what civilizations now lie entombed beneath the waves, waiting for discovery? Moving west, We arrive in the highlands of Ethiopia, where atop a rugged plateau lies one of Christianity's most mysterious wonders, the rock-hewn churches of Lalibela. Unlike conventional structures, these 11 medieval churches were not built upwards with stone, but carved downwards into solid volcanic rock, forming massive subterranean cathedrals that descend from ground level into the earth like inverted temples. What's more astonishing is that these monolithic structures, some of them over 40 feet tall, are interconnected through a labyrinth of tunnels, trenches, and hidden chambers. The official narrative claims they were constructed in the 12th century under the direction of King Lalibela, who sought to create a new Jerusalem. But skeptics question whether such monumental engineering could have been achieved with the limited tools of the time, especially considering the precision, symmetry, and scale of the excavation. No blueprints, no scaffolding, no surviving records describe how it was done. Local legend claims the churches were built by angels in a single night. That, of course, may be poetic metaphor, but it leaves us with the same haunting question: who really carved these masterpieces, and how did they vanish from the historical record so swiftly? The deeper you look into the ancient world, the more you find this recurring theme of knowledge appearing in full bloom, with no gradual evolution, no learning curve. Take, for instance, the Antikythera mechanism, discovered in 1901 off the coast of Greece in the wreckage of a Roman era ship. At first it appeared to be a corroded hunk of bronze, but over time, as technology allowed for better imaging, researchers realized it was far more than that. This device, composed of more than 30 meshing gears, was an analog computer designed to predict astronomical positions, eclipses, and even the timing of the Olympic Games. The Antikythera mechanism is dated to around 150 BCE, but its sophistication suggests a long tradition of mechanical engineering, one that history has utterly failed to preserve. No other device from antiquity matches its complexity until over 1,000 years later. How could such advanced technology appear suddenly, vanish without trace, and then re-emerge in Europe only during the Renaissance? The silence in between speaks volumes. What makes this device even more enigmatic is its purpose. It wasn't used for trade or warfare. It wasn't a weapon, a tool for agriculture, or a method of communication. It was a machine for understanding the heavens. It tracked the moon's irregular orbit, modeled the cycles of the planets, and adjusted for the elliptical paths of celestial bodies. Someone, long before modern science, had the observational data, mathematical insight, and mechanical craftsmanship to build a model of the cosmos, not to explore it, but to predict it. And that raises an unsettling thought. If such devices were once common, if humanity had reached such heights in understanding, what destroyed that knowledge so completely that only a single corroded relic survived? Traveling even further back, we land in the Indus Valley, an ancient civilization contemporary with Egypt and Mesopotamia, but one that remains a riddle. Its cities, such as Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa, were laid out with grid-like precision, featuring advanced drainage systems, standardized bricks, and evidence of civic planning that rivals modern urban design. Yet curiously, there is no monumental architecture, no temples, no obvious palaces or statues of kings. Instead, the society seems to have been astonishingly egalitarian, with relatively uniform housing and no clear elite class. But the strangest aspect of the Indus Valley lies in its writing, or rather, in our inability to read it. Thousands of seals and inscriptions have been discovered, bearing what appears to be a fully developed script. But to this day, no one has successfully deciphered it. Unlike Egyptian hieroglyphs or Sumerian cuneiform, the Indus script has no known bilingual key, and no living descendant language to provide clues. It's as if an entire world spoke, wrote, and vanished without leaving a single comprehensible word. Some theorists suggest the Indus script represents not a language at all, but a symbolic code, possibly religious or administrative. Others argue that it may encode astronomical knowledge or mathematical principles. The symbols are elegant, concise, and strangely repetitive, some involving intricate animals, others geometric motifs. What were they recording? Trade, prayer, governance? Or was it a code meant to be understood only by a select few? More recently, underwater archaeological surveys in the Gulf of Cambay have unearthed what may be a submerged extension of the Indus culture city, older and larger than any known Harappan site. Once again, the story is the same: advanced construction, anomalous dating, sudden disappearance. What kind of cataclysm could wipe such a civilization off the map so thoroughly that even its language died in silence? Turning now to Africa's western coast, we encounter one of the continent's most enigmatic sites, the stone circles of Gambia, scattered across Senegal and the Gambia. These megalithic circles consist of thousands of carefully shaped stones, some weighing several tons, arranged in symmetrical patterns with unknown purpose. Dating back at least 2,000 years, and possibly older, the circles stretch over a vast area, suggesting a long and complex culture that thrived in this region. Little is known about the people who built them. No written records exist. Oral traditions are vague and contradictory. The placement of the stones often aligns with celestial patterns, much like Stonehenge and other ancient astronomical sites. Were these burial grounds, calendars, temples, or the remnants of an entire worldview encoded in stone? The fact that such monumental effort was invested in shaping and aligning these stones indicates a deep reverence for the land and the sky. It is a familiar echo, one that stretches across the globe, whether in the Nazca lines of Peru, the megaliths of Malta, or the mysterious stone heads of Rapa Nui. Across time and culture, ancient humanity seemed compelled to carve its thoughts into the earth, to raise monuments not only of stone but of silence. Messages that could be read only by those who understood the language of the stars. In Rapa Nui, known more commonly as Easter Island, the famous Moai statues stare blankly at the horizon, hundreds of them, each carved with a strange, haunting elegance. The island's isolation only adds to the enigma. How did such a small population, with limited resources and no known advanced tools, move and erect these towering figures? Some stand over 30 feet tall and weigh more than 80 tons. Oral history speaks of mana, spiritual force that allowed the statues to walk across the island. While this may be poetic metaphor, modern attempts to replicate the transport methods have shown that, with ropes and careful coordination, the statues could indeed be rocked forward upright, as though walking. But the mystery deepens when we consider the island's Rongorongo script, a series of glyphs inscribed on wooden tablets found scattered across the island. Like the Indus script, Rongorongo remains undeciphered. Some scholars believe it may be a proto-writing system, while others suggest it could encode genealogies, chants, or astronomical data. Whatever its content, it represents yet another case of knowledge rising in splendid isolation and then vanishing before it could be understood in every corner of the globe. These forgotten fragments of history lie scattered like pieces of a great puzzle. Stone, bone, metal, language, all of them out of time, out of place, resisting explanation. They are not mistakes or coincidences. They are signposts. They point not just to lost civilizations, but to lost eras of humanity, epochs of knowledge, creativity, and understanding that were consumed by fire, water, or simply the inexorable grinding of time. The further we journey, the clearer the message becomes. Our story is not linear. It is not a steady ascent from cave to cathedral. It is a cycle, one of discovery, brilliance, collapse, and forgetting. And if that cycle continues, if we are just the latest turn of the spiral, what does that mean for us? Are we the first to hold this kind of power, or merely the latest to borrow it? The desert winds sweep across northern Africa with an ancient rhythm, a whisper older than empires, older even than the pharaohs. Here, on the edge of the Sahara, lies a land that was once green and alive, where rivers flowed and animals roamed freely across what is now a sea of endless sand. But hidden within this desolate landscape is a formation so massive, so enigmatic, that for decades it was mistaken for nothing more than a trick of light and terrain. It is known as the Eye of the Sahara, or more formally, the Richet Structura Colossal, nearly perfect circular formation over 25 miles across. Its concentric rings spiraling outward like the fingerprint of a forgotten god dot from space. It looks unmistakably artificial, almost like a giant mandala etched into the earth. Geologists classify it as a deeply eroded geological dome, formed by natural uplift and erosion. But there are those who see something more, something deliberate. Some researchers have proposed that the Richet structure bears a striking resemblance to the ancient descriptions of Atlantis. Plato, in his dialogues, described Atlantis as a series of concentric rings of land and water, with a central island surrounded by alternating rings of earth and sea. He spoke of its immense size, its advanced society, its sudden destruction. Skeptics point out that the Richet structure is too old and shows no definitive signs of habitation. But others argue that if Atlantis was real and was indeed destroyed by a cataclysm, much of the evidence could have been wiped away or buried beneath millennia of windblown sand. Even without conclusive proof, the idea lingers because the shape is just too perfect, the scale too vast. And if nothing else, the Richet structure reminds us that sometimes the earth itself can appear to carry the imprint of something greater, something unknown, not far from this mystery. To the east lies a land more familiar to historians, but no less mysterious, ancient Egypt. Beyond the towering pyramids and the inscrutable Sphinx, beyond the temples and tombs of Thebes and Luxor, lies a forgotten story. Deep beneath the temple of Seti at Abydos, an ancient relief was uncovered. And in it, figures were carved that have fueled debate for decades. Among the standard hieroglyphs are shapes that resemble modern flying machines, what looks like a helicopter, an airplane, even a futuristic hovercraft, to the untrained eye. It might seem like coincidence, perhaps erosion or misinterpretation. But the images are strikingly clear, and even among scholars, there is disagreement. Some argue these images are the result of overlapping inscriptions from different periods, a palimpsest of chiseled texts eroded and recarved over time. But others suggest that, if these images are genuine, they might represent a memory of something older, perhaps technological remnants of an earlier age passed down through oral tradition or recorded in symbolic form. Egyptian civilization, after all, did not arise slowly. It appeared in full splendor, with writing, architecture, astronomy, and social structure already advanced. Where did this knowledge come from? Was it developed over thousands of years in the Nile Valley alone, or was something else at play perhaps? A forgotten predecessor, or a transfer of wisdom from a different source, one whose traces have faded beyond recognition. Further down the Nile, in the land of Nubia, archaeologists have uncovered an entire civilization that once rivaled Egypt in power and sophistication, the kingdom of Kush. The Nubians built pyramids too, though smaller and steeper, and practiced elaborate burial customs. They had writing, governance, and architecture. And yet, for centuries, their story was neglected, overshadowed by their more famous northern neighbors. Only now are researchers beginning to understand the extent of their achievements, to question why we know so little about them. Could it be that the focus on Tude has caused us to overlook other centers of ancient knowledge? And if the Kushites carried traditions that predated or paralleled Egyptian ones, where did they get their knowledge from? Was there a network of forgotten civilizations across Africa, exchanging ideas, mapping stars, and shaping the world before the rise of the pharaohs? Traveling far across the ocean to the Americas, we encounter another ancient wonder, Teotihuacan, located in the Valley of Mexico. This sprawling metropolis was once home to over 100,000 people and features some of the largest pyramids in the world. The Pyramid of the Sun, the Pyramid of the Moon, and the Temple of the Feathered Serpent rise along a grand avenue aligned with celestial bodies. The city was laid out with astonishing precision, its urban plan incorporating sacred geometry, astronomical alignments, and cosmological symbolism. But here's the mystery. We don't know who built Teotihuacan by the time the Aztecs arrived. In the 14th century, the city had already been abandoned for centuries. The Aztecs revered it, calling it the City of the Gods, and believed it was the place where the gods created the world. But the true builders are unknown. Some researchers suggest the Toltecs, others propose even earlier peoples. The murals and artifacts left behind show a highly organized, deeply spiritual society with advanced understanding of astronomy and engineering. Strangely, the architecture of Teotihuacan shares similarities with structures on the other side of the world in Egypt, in Cambodia, and in Mesopotamia. The idea of step pyramids, of alignment with the stars, of ritualistic pathways mirroring the heavens, these appear in multiple, supposedly isolated civilizations. Is it coincidence, parallel development, or was there once a common thread connected these ancient cultures across vast distances, an echo of some global understanding now forgotten? And what lies beneath Teotihuacan may be even more mysterious than what stands above. Recent excavations have uncovered underground tunnels beneath the pyramids, some filled with liquid mercury, others lined with mica mineral with electromagnetic properties. Why would an ancient people use mercury, a toxic and difficult substance, in such quantities? What purpose did these tunnels serve? Were they ceremonial, symbolic, or functional in a way we no longer understand? From the highlands of Mexico, we descend into the Peruvian Andes, where the Inca built their cities with astonishing skill, none more famous than Machu Picchu, perched atop a mountain ridge, and hidden for centuries by the surrounding jungle. This citadel was once a royal estate, a religious site, or perhaps something more. The precision of its stonework, the way its structures align with the solstices, and the way it harmonizes with the surrounding landscapes speak to a level of design and intention far beyond mere survival or defense. But the Incas themselves claimed they did not build many of the oldest structures. Instead, they said, they found them. This echoes a pattern we've seen again and again of ancient cultures inheriting and repurposing the remnants of even more ancient ones. In Peru, some of the megalithic stonework such as that at Sacsayhuaman is so finely fitted that not even a blade of grass can slip between the stones. The blocks are massive, irregular, and interlocking, shaped in ways that suggest techniques we cannot replicate with ease today. Were these the works of the Inca? Or were they the legacy of a forgotten people, a lost race whose memory survives only in stone? Even deeper into South America, in the Bolivian jungle, lies a story so strange it borders on legend. Near the village of Semapada, carved into a mountaintop, is a massive stone platform known as El Fuerte. Covered in mysterious carvings and aligned with constellations, it is unlike any other known archaeological site. No tombs, no dwellings, no clear purpose. Just a vast surface, sculpted with symbolic motifs, stairways that lead nowhere, and channels whose function remains unknown. Local legends speak of sky beings, of knowledge granted from above, of rituals that bridged heaven and earth, and the jungle has not yielded all its secrets. In recent years, aerial mapping has revealed massive geometric shapes beneath the Amazon canopy earthworks, so large they can only be seen from the sky. Some form perfect squares, circles, and lines stretching for miles. These geoglyphs, some thousands of years old, challenge the idea that the Amazon was an untouched wilderness. Instead, it appears it was once a carefully managed landscape, home to complex societies who shaped the forest as deliberately as any European farmer shaped his fields. If these civilizations were once so advanced, what happened to them? Disease, conquest, climate. Many theories exist, but none fully explain how such sophisticated knowledge vanished. Could it be that we have lived this cycle before? That humanity has risen and fallen, again and again, each time leaving behind only fragments too strange to fit into the narrative we've constructed? This cycle, this rise and fall, appears to be the rule, not the exception. In ancient myths, from the Mayans to the Greeks to the Hindus, there are stories of great ages of man, each destroyed by fire, water, wind, or earth. Atlantis is only the most famous. The Mayans spoke of the previous worlds, the suns destroyed by cataclysms. Hindu texts describe the yuga cycles of time where civilization rises to spiritual and technological heights before falling into chaos and ignorance. And now, as we piece together the scattered clusta, unexplainable artifacts, the Autuvy Place ruins, the stories carved in stone, we begin to see that perhaps these myths were not mere fiction. Perhaps they were memorized, distorted, but rooted in truth. Because the earth remembers, even if we forget. The more we dig into the past, the clearer it becomes that our understanding of history is built on shifting sand. And perhaps nowhere is this more evident than in the myths, those ancient stories whispered across generations. Dismissed by scholars as allegory or fable, yet echoing with uncanny consistency across distant lands and disconnected cultures. From the high mountains of Tibet to the plains of Mesopotamia, from the jungles of the Amazon to the shores of Polynesia, there exists a recurring tale, a golden age, a lost world, and a great flood that ended everything. At first glance, these stories may seem poetic metaphors for nature's wrath or morality tales for the careless. But when we begin to examine their underlying patterns, when we listen, really listen, we discover details so specific, so globally shared, they begin to defy coincidence. Nearly every ancient civilization speaks of a catastrophic deluge, of waters rising to consume the earth, of survivors who preserved knowledge in arks, vaults, or sacred texts. The Sumerians told of Utnapishtim, the lone man who escaped the flood, sent by angry gods. The Greeks told of Deucalion and Pyrrha cast adrift, as Zeus cleansed the world. The Hindus told of Manu, warned by the fish god Matsya, to build a boat and save humanity. The Hopi, the Maya, the Chinese, they all speak of the world that was, and the waters that swallowed it. So we must ask, could these myths reflect a real event? Geological and climatological evidence suggests that they might. Around 12,800 years ago, Earth experienced a sudden and dramatic climate shift known as the Younger Dryas. Global temperatures plummeted, sea levels surged, and massive extinctions occurred. Some scientists believe this was triggered by the impact of a comet or asteroid, which struck the northern hemisphere and unleashed firestorms, floods, and global darkness. If this event did occur, it would have been catastrophic enough to erase civilizations, especially if those civilizations were located near coastlines, as many early societies were. And here's where the puzzle deepens. Around this same time, the geological record shows evidence of widespread burning, sudden climatic upheaval, and rapid changes in vegetation and animal populations. Entire species vanished, ice sheets melted, ocean levels rose by hundreds of feet. Vast swaths of land, now submerged, would have been exposed and habitable before this cataclysm. Ancient continental shelves, now underwater, may once have held cities' knowledge and memories we can no longer reach. One such submerged site lies off the coast of Japan, near the island of Yonaguni. We've mentioned it before, but its mystery deserves deeper attention. Beneath the waves, a series of massive stone terraces, staircases, and platforms sit eerily still. While many scientists argue the formations are natural, others insist on their artificial origins. The steps are too regular, the angles too precise. Divers have identified what appear to be pathways, doorways, and even carved faces features that don't align easily with natural geology. If Yonaguni is artificial, and if it dates back to before the last ice age, as some claim, then it would rewrite the history of human civilization, not by centuries, but by millennia. The challenge lies not just in proving its man-made origin, but in understanding how such a place could be constructed when, according to accepted history, humans were still living in small bands, hunting and gathering, with no knowledge of masonry or architecture. But what if they weren't? What if the version of history we've been taught, the slow, linear ascent from primitive to advanced, is an illusion built upon the ruins of a much older story? What if humanity has risen before, reached great heights, and then fallen into darkness again and again? This theory is not as outlandish as it might seem. In fact, some of the world's oldest texts hint at it openly. The Mahabharata, an ancient Indian epic, describes a war fought with weapons of terrifying power, explosions brighter than 1,000 suns, chariots that flew through the air, and cities vaporized in an instant. These are images that sound eerily modern. Some even speculate they reflect distant memories of a technologically advanced age now lost to time. Skeptics dismiss this as imagination, myth, or coincidence. But then we find curious anomalies, artifacts that seem to have no place in their time. In the ancient city of Dholavira, part of the Indus Valley civilization, researchers discovered an astonishing water management system: reservoirs, filtration canals, and underground drains so advanced that some argue they rival modern techniques. The city was designed with proportionate ratios, carefully aligned streets, and massive public baths. But this was over 4,000 years ago. Further south, in Tamil Nadu, an ancient city named Pumpur lies partially submerged beneath the Bay of Bengal. According to local legends and ancient texts, the city was consumed by the sea after a great deluge. Modern sonar scans have revealed submerged structures off the coast, paved streets, stone wharves, and walls. Could this be one of India's lost cities, drowned by the post-ice age sea level rise? If so, it would lend powerful weight to the idea that many ancient civilizations lived along NASA-merged coastline, civilizations that may have had knowledge, architecture, and cultural richness we cannot begin to comprehend, across the Atlantic. In the heart of Central America, the Maya carved their history into stone, complex calendars, astronomical predictions, and warnings etched in glyphs we've only partially translated. The Maya long count calendar, often misinterpreted in popular culture, spans over 5,000 years and begins in 3114 BCE. But why that date? What memory did they seek to preserve? What happened before that era that warranted the beginning of a new epoch? Even stranger is their advanced understanding of astronomy. The Maya tracked Venus with staggering accuracy, accounting for its irregular orbit better than the early European astronomers. They predicted solar and lunar eclipses with precision, developed mathematical concepts including the concept of zero, and built entire cities aligned to celestial events. One wonders, how did a jungle civilization, supposedly isolated, develop such deep and complex knowledge? And they weren't alone. The ancient Dogon people of Mali in West Africa have long spoken of the Sirius star system, claiming that their ancestors were visited by beings from Sirius B, a white dwarf star, invisible to the naked eye and only confirmed by modern science in the 20th century. Their oral traditions describe the orbit of Sirius B around Sirius A with astonishing precision, as well as the density and characteristics of the star. How could this be possible without telescopes or written astronomy? Some dismiss it as coincidence, or suggests that the Dogon learned of it in modern times through contact with outsiders. But French anthropologists who lived with the Dogon for decades reported that these beliefs predated any modern contact and were deeply embedded in the tribe's spiritual and cultural life. Another mystery lies in the deserts of Peru. The Nazca lines, sprawled across hundreds of square miles. These massive geoglyphs, some depicting animals, others geometric patterns, and some so vast they can only be seen from the sky, remain one of archaeology's most enduring puzzles. Why would an ancient people carve figures hundreds of feet long, viewable only from above, if they had no means of flight? What purpose did the lines serve, ceremonial, astronomical, or something else entirely? The lines are more than art. They are deliberate, constructed with purpose. Some aligned with solstices, others seem to point to distant mountain ranges or water sources. Some researchers have proposed that the lines formed a complex ritual landscape, perhaps meant to be walked or danced as part of sacred ceremonies. Others suggest they are maps, codes, or even messages to the gods or something else in the sky. We keep circling back to the same strange idea that ancient civilizations may have had a relationship with the cosmos that was not just symbolic, but intimate. They mapped the heavens not just to mark time or seasons, but perhaps because they remembered something important, something from before. Even their architecture reflects this. Across the globe, from the Giza Plateau to Angkor Wat, to the temples of Cambodia and the pyramids of Mesoamerica, we find alignments with Orion, Sirius, the solstices, and the equinoxes. These are not accidental. These are deliberate fingerprints left behind by cultures trying to anchor themselves to the stars. And if this is the case, if they were trying to remember, to preserve, to signal something, then perhaps we must begin to listen differently. Not as conquerors of the past, not as critics of myth, but as students of a deeper truth. Because the more we uncover, the more we realize that we are not looking at the origins of civilization, but at its aftermath. We are the inheritors of a world rebuilt and scattered across the planet, in the oldest ruins, the deepest tombs, and the faintest whispers of myth are the clues to the world that came before. There exists, quietly tucked away in the dusty corners of European libraries, an artifact that continues to baffle and provoke, even centuries after it first emerged. It is not built of stone, nor buried beneath ancient sands. It contains no bones, no gold, no jewels. And yet, it may hold a key to a past we've long misunderstood. This object is known as the Piri Race Map, a fragmentary world map drawn in 1513 by an Ottoman admiral of the same name, who claimed it was compiled using ancient source materials, including maps from the time of Alexander the Great. At first glance, it seems like a typical Renaissance cartographic work. But look closer, and the real mystery emerges. The map shows, with startling accuracy, parts of the South American coast, the western coast of Africa, and most bizarrely a representation of Antarctica. Not the frozen, mountainous Antarctica of today, but an ice-free coastline, matching geological reconstructions of what the continent might have looked like thousands of years ago before it was covered in glaciers. And herein lies the enigma. How could a 16th century mapmaker have knowledge of a coastline that's been buried under ice for more than 6,000 years? This is not simply a case of misinterpretation. The latitude and longitude estimations are surprisingly precise. and the relative positions of landmasses suggest the mapmaker had access to a global understanding of geography, something not formally achieved until centuries later. If Piri Reis truly based his map on older sources, as he claimed, then where did those sources come from? Who mapped Antarctica when it was still green and temperate? Who had the ships, the knowledge, the observational tools to chart a world so accurately in prehistory? The Piri Reis map is not alone. Other mysterious maps from the 15th and 16th centuries, such as the Orontius Phineas map and the Xenoma, depict surprisingly accurate renderings of polar regions and transoceanic coastlines that defy what was supposedly known at the time. Together, they form a peculiar pattern suggesting that some body of ancient geographic knowledge once existed, passed down in fragments, copied and recopied until only faint echoes remain. This theory that there was once a global civilization, with navigational and cartographic abilities beyond what ancient history accounts for, has long been relegated to the fringes of academia. Yet the evidence continues to accumulate. Consider the existence of ancient harbors and quarries found at high altitudes, far from any modern coastlines, or the enormous anchor stones, some weighing multiple tons, discovered along ancient maritime routes in the Mediterranean, the Red Sea, and even in the Pacific. These suggest large-scale seafaring activity long before the age of European exploration. And then there's the matter of precise, ancient construction. In Jerusalem, beneath the Temple Mount, lie stones of unimaginable size, some over 500 tons, placed with such precision that even the smallest cracks between them are barely visible. Similarly, at Baalbek in modern-day Lebanon, a platform known as the Trilithon supports 3 massive stone blocks, each weighing approximately 800 tons. No crane on Earth today can move such weights with ease. So how were they placed there? Thousands of years ago, mainstream historians propose these platforms were built as part of Roman temples. But even Roman engineering has its limits. The question persists. If the Romans did not place these stones, then who did? Some archaeologists now suspect that the Romans built on top of much older foundations. Foundations created by a culture capable of manipulating stone on a scale, and with a finesse we can barely comprehend. Such is also the case in Egypt, where the construction of the Great Pyramid continues to puzzle and divide the academic world. We know it wasn't just a tomb. The precision of its alignment with the cardinal points, its internal shafts that point to specific stars, and its near-perfect geometric symmetry suggest far more than funerary function. The Great Pyramid is not a random pile of stone, it is a structure of such mathematical precision that it encodes pi and the golden ratio, aligning with the belt stars of Orion, echoing a cosmic design. And while we've long attributed it to Pharaoh Khufu, that attribution is based on scant evidence, primarily a single piece of graffiti hidden deep within the internal chambers. No hieroglyphs, no inscriptions, no definitive date. Just silence, as if the builders did not need to mark their work, as if they expected their legacy to speak for itself across thousands of years. The debate intensifies when we consider the sheer manpower required to move and position over 2 million stone blocks each, weighing between 2 and 80 tons, with such speed and accuracy. The traditional view imagines tens of thousands of laborers toiling for decades, dragging stones with ropes and wooden sleds across desert sand. But even generous estimates struggle to make the math work. Too many stones, too little time, not enough evidence of massive support camps or tool remains. More than just the pyramid's construction. It is its purpose that invites mystery. Some researchers have suggested that it was not a tomb at all, but a type of machine perhaps to harness energy from the earth, or as a kind of astronomical observatory. Others believe it was a preservation vault, designed to survive floods, fires, and cataclysm. It is eerily resistant to erosion and built to withstand earthquakes, storms, and time itself. It may have been created not for a king's afterlife, but for humanity's rebirth. And Egypt is not alone in this. All over the world, pyramids emerge: step pyramids, flat-top pyramids, conical mounds, each different in shape, but eerily similar in purpose. In China's Shanxi province, dozens of massive pyramids, the landscape, some over 200 feet high, shrouded in forest and guarded from investigation. In Central America, the Maya and Aztec built pyramids that served not just as temples, but as celestial calendars. In Indonesia, the Gunung Padang site has revealed what appears to be a 20,000-year-old megalithic step pyramid, hidden beneath volcanic soil, possibly the oldest pyramid structure on Earth. This worldwide phenomenon suggests something more than coincidence. It suggests that pyramid building was a global tradition, a method of encoding knowledge into stone, of aligning with the heavens, of remembering something important, something almost too large to say out loud. At the heart of this idea is the concept of the primordial civilization, a mother culture, from which all later civilizations drew their knowledge. According to this theory, once upon a time, a highly advanced society existed, either global or partially so, and after a cataclysmic collapse, its knowledge was preserved in fragments, in myths, in monuments, in oral traditions passed from shaman to priest to king. Even Plato, whose account of Atlantis is so often mocked, claimed that he learned the story from Egyptian priests, who in turn preserved it from a time long before, a time when the gods still walked with man, a time of perfect balance, destroyed by hubris. If this story, like so many others, was not a metaphor, but a memory, the ancient world is filled with inexplicable precision. In the Incan fortress of Ollantaytambo, stones are cut to fit together with such accuracy that modern architects marvel at their technique. The surfaces are polished, their interlocking angles complex, their joinery earthquake-resistant and enduring. In the Temple of Hathor at Dendora, Egypt, carvings depict what appears to be electrical bulbs and generators devices, whose appearance sparks debates even today. In ancient Baghdad, scrolls speak of steam-powered devices and automatons created in the royal courts. In the Greco-Roman world, the legendary engineer hero of Alexandria created machines that operated with pneumatics, hydraulics, and even programmable logic using gears and air pressure. Time and again, we encounter glimpses of ancient minds not shackled by their era, but soaring far ahead of it, moments of brilliance, suppressed or forgotten. So what happened? If this knowledge once existed, where did it go? Why is there such a profound silence between these bursts of genius and the medieval dark ages that followed? The answer may lie not in ignorance, but in cycles. Civilizations rise, grow, overextend, and collapse. And each time they fall, much of their knowledge dies with them. Without books, libraries, or digital backups, oral traditions can only carry so much. Wars burn archives. Floods wash away cities. Earthquakes crumble temples. The wisdom of 1,000 years can vanish in a single season, yet fragments remain. A glyph, a star chart, a temple aligned to Orion, a machine buried in a shipwreck. These are the embers of ancient fire, glowing faintly in the ruins of time. And if we listen closely, if we approach the past not with arrogance but humility, we might begin to hear what they are trying to say, because they are still speaking, in silence, in stone. The deeper we venture into the ruins of antiquity, the more we begin to notice a subtle, pervasive pattern, one not of words or images, but of numbers. A silent language, etched not in stone but in proportion, alignment, and measure. It is a language that transcends culture, appearing in the design of temples, the layout of cities, the spiral of shells, and the orbit of planets. Sacred geometry, as it is called, is not just an aesthetic or symbolic principle, it is a code, a mathematical fingerprint of a knowledge system that seems to echo across civilizations which, according to conventional history, never met, never communicated, and never shared ideas, and yet, they all drew from the same well. Consider the Great Pyramid of Giza. Its base perimeter, divided by its height, yields a close approximation of 2 pi, suggesting an intentional encoding of circular geometry. Within a square structure, it aligns almost perfectly with the cardinal points of the compass, and its dimensions appear to scale the planet itself. The pyramid's height corresponds proportionally to the radius of the Earth, and the base perimeter correlates with the planet's equatorial circumference. These are not coincidences, nor the product of crude measurement. They are deliberate, they are precise, thousands of miles away, in Central America. The Pyramid of El Castillo, at Chichen Itza, reveals a similar complexity. It has 91 steps on each of its 4 sides, plus a top platform, making 365 in total the number of days in a solar year. Twice a year, during the equinoxes, the setting sun casts a shadow along the balustrade that creates the illusion of a serpent slithering down the staircase, culminating at the carved stone head of the feathered serpent god, Kukulkan. Not just religious symbolism, is astronomical precision, encoded in architecture. We see it again in Stonehenge. The ancient stone circle in England is not merely a random assortment of monoliths. It is an observatory, aligned with the sun and lunar cycles. Some researchers argue that its arrangement of stones may have been used to predict eclipses or to track complex lunar phenomena like the Metonic cycle, a 19-year period after which lunar phases repeat on the same days of the solar year. Across the ocean, in Cambodia, the temple complex of Angkor Wat is laid out to mirror the constellation of Draco. Its towers and corridors encode the precession of the equinoxes, a subtle astronomical motion that takes over 26,000 years to complete. Why would an ancient civilization track such an immense celestial cycle, one that spans beyond a human lifespan, beyond many generations? Unless they had inherited the knowledge, unless they were preserving something. This is the pattern. Ancient cultures across the globe, separated by oceans and time, all building structures that mirror the heavens, encode cosmic mathematics, and resonate with principles that modern science would not rediscover for millennia. The golden ratio, pi, the Fibonacci sequence, the precession of the equinoxes, all embedded in structures that supposedly predate even the concept of algebra or geometry. How did they know? Who taught them? And why did they feel the need to write these truths into stone? Perhaps the answer lies in the idea that language alone was not enough. Spoken words vanish, written ones can be lost, but numbers endure. Mathematics is the language of nature, of physics, of the universe itself. To encode knowledge into number and form is to preserve it across time, to hide it in plain sight. In architecture, in music, in myth, and yet, some ancient languages do endure barely. In the island of Crete, long before the rise of classical Greece, the Minoans developed a writing system known as Linear A. Despite decades of study, it remains undeciphered. We know it was used for administration, possibly for sacred texts, but we cannot read it. Its successor, Linear B, used by the Mycenaeans, has been translated and revealed early Greek dialects, but Linear A, silent alien, a voice from a culture whose worldview remains locked behind symbols. We no longer understand, and it's not alone, but Rongo script of Easter Island is another mystery. Found inscribed on wooden tablets, it appears to be a writing system, perhaps one of the only ones to originate independently in the Pacific, but no one has deciphered it. The inhabitants of Rapa Nui left behind no Rosetta Stone, no translations, only glyphs, carved in rhythmic patterns, whose meaning died with the priests who once chanted them. Further north, the Olmecs of ancient Mesoamerica, the supposed mother culture of the region, left behind massive stone heads, intricate sculptures, and symbols that may represent an early writing system. But if it is writing, we cannot read it. What wisdom was carried in those glyphs? What science? What stories? Each of these undeciphered scripts is like a sealed vault in human memory. Behind them may lie entire cosmologies, philosophies, discoveries that never reached us. We stand surrounded by monuments whose creators speak to us in shapes and proportions, but whose voices remain just out of reach. Even the myths that we do understand often seem to carry layers beneath the surface. Take, for instance, the Epic of Gilgamesh, the oldest known written story, inscribed in cuneiform on clay tablets over 4,000 years ago. On its face, it is a heroic saga, a king seeking immortality, wrestling gods and beasts. But beneath its narrative is a tale of great floods, fallen cities, and a yearning to remember what was lost. It echoes with themes that appear in the Bible, in Sumerian epics, in Indian Puranas, a time before, when gods and men walked together, and when that age ended in fire and flood. These stories are often dismissed as myth. But what is myth, if not memory transfigured by time? The ancient Hindus did not see history as linear. They described time in great cycles of rise and fall, light and darkness. The Satya Yuga, an age of truth and harmony. The Kali Yuga, an age of decay and ignorance. We are, according to Hindu cosmology, living in the latter, but that implies a time before when knowledge was complete, when humanity was in balance. Similarly, the Hopi of North America speak of multiple worlds. Each world ends in disaster by fire, by ice, by flood. We now live in the fourth world, they say, and unless we remember the lessons of the past, it too will end. In Australia, Aboriginal Dreamtime stories recount ancestors who traveled the land and sky, shaping the world in patterns that align with stars and natural formations. These are not fanciful tales. They are deeply encoded systems of knowledge, geography, astronomy, ecology, all passed down through story and ceremony. And perhaps no tale is more haunting than the Greek story of Atlantis. Plato claimed it was a real place in advanced civilization that grew arrogant, fell out of favor with the gods, and was swallowed by the sea. While scholars have long debated whether Atlantis was allegory or history, the pattern is familiar. A golden age, a catastrophe, a warning. We see the same in ancient Egypt, where the oldest texts, the pyramid texts, speak of the first time, the Zep Tepi, when gods ruled on earth and brought knowledge to mankind. They describe a period of darkness and chaos before the re-establishment of order. Again, the memory of something older, greater, lurking behind the official timeline. Could these be memories of a forgotten epoch? A pre-Ice Age civilization whose remnants were swallowed by rising seas and shifting continents? Some researchers believe so. They point to submerged ruins off the coasts of India, Japan, and Cuba. They highlight underwater megaliths, drowned cities, and sonar scans of symmetrical, geometric formations buried under sediment. These are not natural, they are architected, but by whom and when? The deeper we look, the more we find ourselves staring not just into the past but into a mirror. These ancient puzzles speak not only of forgotten times, but of the fragility of knowledge, of how easily it can be lost, of how civilization, no matter how advanced, can be swept away in a single generation. And perhaps that is the true legacy of these mysterious discoveries, not just what they tell us about the past, but what they warn us about the future. They remind us that we are not the first, that progress is not inevitable, that memory fades faster than we think. But if we can listen, truly listen to the stones, the stars, and the silent scripts, perhaps we can remember in time. Perhaps we can preserve what was once nearly lost. In the long corridors of ancient time, there are whispers of machines, of gears turning in darkness, of metal glinting under torchlight, of mechanisms lost to fire and flood. These are not tales of modern invention, but of ancient technology. So advanced it should not exist. It appears quietly, often without context, sometimes without explanation, but always with the unsettling implication that someone, somewhere, long before our current understanding of history, possessed knowledge that rivaled or even surpassed our own. Consider the Antikythera mechanism, recovered from a sunken Roman ship off the coast of Greece in 1901. For decades, it was dismissed as an anomaly, just a corroded hunk of bronze. But as modern imaging techniques revealed its inner workings, scholars were stunned. The device, now believed to be over 2,000 years old, contains dozens of precision gears and dials. It can track the movements of the sun, moon, and planets. It predicts eclipses. It even accounts for the irregular orbit of the moon. It is essentially an analog computer, far ahead of anything else from its time. But how did it come to be? No earlier or contemporary device of similar complexity has been found. The knowledge needed to build such a machine would have required centuries of accumulated observation, mathematics, metallurgy, and fine mechanical engineering. And yet, there it was, lying silently on the ocean floor. Was it truly an isolated marvel, the product of one extraordinary mind? Or was it a relic of a broader technological tradition now lost? If so, it wouldn't be the only one in ancient India. Texts like the Samarangana Sutrodhara and the Vaimanika Shastra describe flying machines called vimanas. These were said to be powered by engines, capable of vertical takeoff, maneuvering in all directions, and even traveling into space. The texts go into great detail describing metal alloys, fuel sources, flight mechanics, and even the psychological effects of flying at great speeds. Many dismiss these writings as poetic imagination. But if that's the case, why are the descriptions so technical, so precise? They do not read like allegory, they read like instruction. Further still, ancient Mesopotamian tablets contain references to a substance called shamash that granted illumination, power, and even heat. Egyptian reliefs in the Dendera temple depict what appears to be a bulb-shaped object connected by wires to a box held by priests, often interpreted by fringe theorists as a form of ancient electric light. Critics argue these are symbolic images, representations of spiritual energy, perhaps, but once again, the resemblance to modern technology is uncanny. Is it possible that these civilizations remembered a time when such technology did exist, and encoded it in their religious iconography? What we call mythology, they may have called memory. Throughout the ancient world, we also find bizarre artifacts that seem to mock our linear timeline of progress. In 1938, in a Chinese tomb near Bayangkarila, a set of strange circular stone discs was found. They became known as the Dropa stones. Each disc was nearly a foot wide and had a tiny spiral groove filled with microscopic characters. According to the controversial translations made by early researchers, the writing told of a spaceship that crash-landed in the mountains thousands of years ago. The Dropa, its crew, could not return to the stars and integrated with the local tribes. While many scholars dispute the story, the discs themselves remain puzzling, especially given their odd magnetic properties and microscopic features. Seemingly crafted with tools more precise than Stone Age implements. Then there's the Baghdad battery, an ancient clay jar dated to roughly 200 BCE, containing a copper cylinder and an iron rod. Some researchers believe it may have been used as a galvanic cella primitive battery. While the purpose of the artifact is still debated, it raises a troubling question. If this was a battery, what exactly were the ancients powering? Such anomalies are often explained away as isolated accidents, misinterpretations, or the result of over-enthusiastic speculation. But they persist. One or two can be ignored. A dozen become harder to explain. Hundreds begin to form a pattern, and that pattern becomes even harder to dismiss when we consider the sophisticated scientific understanding embedded in ancient texts. The Sulba Sutras of ancient India describe geometric rules with astounding precision, rules that anticipate the Pythagorean theorem long before Pythagoras. Babylonian astronomers tracked planetary cycles over centuries, accurately predicting eclipses with techniques rediscovered only in recent centuries. The Mayan calendar accounted for the length of the solar year more precisely than the Gregorian. Ancient Chinese alchemists developed chemical processes that rivaled early modern chemistry, and Egyptian doctors performed surgeries, used anesthetics, and recorded diseases with clinical accuracy. How could this be? Conventional history tells us that human civilization followed a steady upward curve, from primitive hunter-gatherers to the pinnacle of modern technological society. But the evidence suggests something more complicated. It suggests spikes, peaks, civilizations that rose perhaps higher than we have imagined, only to fall, catastrophically leaving behind scattered fragments of their genius. Could this explain the strange recurring phenomenon of ancient sites being built upon older foundations? In places like Tiahuanaco in Bolivia, researchers have discovered stonework that appears to predate the Inca by thousands of years. The same is true in Egypt, where structures like the Valley Temple of Giza contain blocks weighing hundreds of tons, vastly older than the pharaonic additions built atop them. Even the city of Jericho, one of the oldest continuously inhabited cities in the world, reveals layers upon layers of civilization, each buried beneath the collapse of the previous. It is as though history has a rhythm: rise, collapse, forget, rise again, and each time, something is lost. Knowledge, language, technology. The pieces remain, but the pattern is forgotten. Except, perhaps, by a few those who encoded the memory in myth, in stone, in secret. That is where the real mystery lies. Not just in the objects themselves, but in the way they seem to hint at a deeper story, one barely glimpsed, like ruins beneath a forest floor. And those ruins are not only physical, they are intellectual, philosophical, perhaps even spiritual, because many of these ancient technologies were not merely utilitarian. They were embedded in sacred spaces, temples, and ceremonial centers. Their functions were not always practical in the modern sense. They were symbolic, energetic, cosmological. They reflected a worldview in which science, religion, and art were one, where every structure was a mirror of the cosmos, every ceremony a reenactment of cosmic principles, every invention an echo of the divine. To understand these technologies, we may need to shed our modern assumptions that knowledge must progress in a straight line, that ancient people were primitive, that we are the pinnacle of all that came before. Because what if the truth is this? We are not the first. We are not the most advanced. We are merely the latest. And across the planet, scattered like breadcrumbs in stone, metal, and myth, are the relics of those who came before, who built, who flew, who calculated and healed and dreamed, whose lights burned bright, and then went out. But not completely, for those lights still flicker in our curiosity, in our questions, in the ache we feel when standing before a megalith that should not exist, or a map that should not be accurate, or a myth that feels too real. They flicker in the hunger to remember, and in the fear of what we may find when we finally do. Throughout the vast tapestry of human history, sound and vibration have held a place of profound significance, often intertwined with the spiritual and the scientific in ways modern society has only begun to appreciate. Ancient civilizations around the world appeared to understand the power of resonance not just as a physical phenomenon, but as a tool, a weapon, a healer, and a bridge between the material and the metaphysical realms. One of the most striking examples comes from the mysterious chambers within the Great Pyramid of Giza. Researchers and sound engineers who have experimented within its internal corridors and the King's Chamber have reported unusual acoustic properties, Certain frequencies, when sung or played, create standing waves and resonances that cause the entire chamber to vibrate in unison. This phenomenon, called the pyramid effect, is thought to amplify sound and perhaps even induce altered states of consciousness or healing effects on the body. Was the pyramid merely a tomb, or was it also a kind of resonant chamber in ancient laboratory for sound? Some propose that the precise dimensions and materials used in its construction were designed to harness the power of resonance intentionally. After all, sound is energy in motion. If the ancient builders understood how to manipulate it, what secrets might they have unlocked? Elsewhere, the ancient Mayans were known not only for their astronomical prowess, but also for their mastery of acoustics. The temple at Chichen Itza contains a fascinating example, the Echo Pyramid, where a hand clap at the base produces a chirping sound remarkably similar to the call of the Quetzal bird, a sacred symbol of freedom and spirit. This is no accident. The builders carefully engineered the steps and surfaces to produce specific acoustic effects, embedding symbolism and possibly even sacred knowledge in sound. Sound's importance extended beyond architecture into ritual and healing. The Tibetan monks, known for their deep chanting and the use of singing bowls, produce harmonic overtones that induce meditative states and are believed to facilitate healing. The overtone singing practiced in Mongolia and Siberia involves manipulating the vocal tract to produce multiple pitches simultaneously, a technique said to mimic the sounds of nature and the cosmos. In the ancient world, sound was more than music or communication. It was an active force that shaped reality. This concept is reflected in the Hindu idea of Nada Brahma. The world is sound. The universe itself, according to Vedic philosophy, was born from the primordial vibration Om, the cosmic sound that resonates through all creation. Similarly, the ancient Greeks recognized the power of harmony and frequency. Pythagoras, the famous philosopher and mathematician, believed that the cosmos was governed by musical ratios, the music of the spheres. The harmonious relationships between the planets and stars could be expressed through numbers and sound, creating a celestial symphony that reflected divine order. Beyond the philosophical, there is also evidence suggesting the practical application of sound as a tool of influence and power. In the ruins of the ancient city of Jericho, archaeologists discovered evidence that the city's walls were brought down suddenly, an event possibly linked to sonic weaponry. Could the ancient inhabitants have harnessed acoustic resonance to achieve such a feat? While such a theory remains speculative, it echoes similar claims regarding the sound weapons described in myths and texts from other cultures. The concept of sacred geometry and sound intertwines in the use of cymatics, study of visible sound vibrations. Modern experiments have shown that sound frequencies can arrange particles into intricate, often symmetrical patterns reminiscent of those found in nature and ancient architecture. Was this knowledge implicit in the design of temples, monuments, and ritual spaces? Were these sites designed to resonate at specific frequencies to connect humans with the cosmic order? Stonehenge, for instance, with its massive sarsen stones arranged in a circular formation, has been theorized to function as a giant acoustic chamber. Researchers have demonstrated that certain frequencies can resonate within the stones, creating effects that might have been used in ceremonies or healing rituals. These resonances could have enhanced the spiritual experiences of ancient practitioners, linking sound, space, and consciousness. The ancient city of Delphi in Greece housed the famous oracle, where priestesses delivered cryptic prophecies in trance-like states. Some scholars suggest that natural gases rising through fissures beneath the temple could have altered brain chemistry, but the influence of ritual sound, the chanting, drums, and cymbals, may have amplified these effects. Sound was an integral component in bridging the human with the divine. In the Americas. The Nazca lines, those vast geoglyphs etched into the Peruvian desert, may also be tied to sound and ritual. Some researchers believe that these lines were paths of power, walked by shamans in trance states induced by rhythmic sound and movement, connecting the earth to the heavens. Sound also held a place in healing. Ancient Egyptian medical texts refer to the use of chants and mantras in treating illnesses. Vibrations were believed to restore balance within the body's energies. The use of bells, drums, and flutes in various cultures served similar purposes: cleanse spaces, ward off evil, and restore harmony. Even the Bible references the power of sound. The walls of Jericho famously fell after the Israelites blew their trumpets and shouted, a story suggesting that sound was perceived as a force capable of physical destruction. The power of sound is not limited to the ancient past. Modern science confirms that resonance can influence matter. Ultrasound is used medically to break up kidney stones and heal tissues. Cymatic patterns reflect the underlying structure of matter at microscopic levels. This convergence between ancient intuition and modern science raises profound questions about what civilizations before us might have known. Could the ancient builders and priests have developed technologies to harness sound waves to heal, to protect, or to destroy? Did they encode knowledge of these principles into their temples, their monuments, and their myths, hoping to preserve them for future generations? Perhaps the secrets of the ancients are not lost to time but hidden in vibrations and frequencies, waiting for us to listen with new ears. On contemplating this, one must remember that sound is ephemeral, fleeting, and invisible. It leaves no physical trace, only impact. The ancients' decision to enshrine the principles of resonance in stone architecture and myth might have been a way to give permanence to what is inherently transient. Thus, sacred sites around the world, from Egypt to Peru, from England to Cambodia, are not only feats of engineering but also ancient laboratories of sound and vibration. Their builders understood something fundamental, that the universe itself is alive with sound, and by attuning ourselves to its frequencies, we might bridge the gap between the physical and the spiritual, the known and the unknown. Sound, then, is more than noise. It is a key to memory, to healing, to power, and perhaps to the very essence of existence. Since the dawn of humanity, the sky has been a canvas for stories, a clock for time, and a map for navigation. Yet beyond these practical uses, the stars have carried profound meaning, guiding ancient peoples to align their monuments, rituals, and calendars with celestial rhythms that stretched far beyond a single lifetime. Throughout the world, remarkable structures remain as testaments to a sophisticated understanding of the cosmos, knowledge that defies the supposed technological limits of the ancient world. One of the most striking examples lies in the deserts of Peru, where the Nazca lines stretch for miles. These massive geoglyphs, visible only from above, depict animals, geometric shapes, and lines that seem random from the ground but reveal complex patterns when viewed from the sky. Some researchers propose that the lines functioned as a gigantic astronomical calendar, aligned to the solstices, equinoxes, and important celestial events. These alignments may have allowed the Nazca people to track agricultural cycles, seasonal changes, and perhaps even longer cosmic rhythms, thousands of miles away. In the highlands of Bolivia, the ancient city of Tiahuanaco reveals a similar celestial connection. The gateway, known as the Puerto del Sol Gate of the Sun, is carved with a figure surrounded by a complex array of symbols representing the sun, stars, and time cycles. The structure is aligned precisely with the rising and setting sun during solstices, reflecting an advanced knowledge of solar motion. Even more remarkable is the alignment of the pyramids of Giza in Egypt. Their placement on the plateau is not random. It mirrors the stars of Orion's belt, a constellation associated with Osiris, the god of rebirth and the afterlife. This stellar alignment suggests a cosmological purpose, connecting earthly tombs with the heavens and the eternal cycles of death and renewal. The Mayan civilization, famed for its intricate calendar systems, offers perhaps the most compelling evidence of ancient astronomical mastery. The Maya tracked not only the solar year, but also the lunar cycles, Venus's phases, and even more complex cycles, such as the 260-day Tzolk'in and the 5,125-year long count calendar. Their observatories, like the one at Uxmal, are built to capture precise alignments of planets and stars. And their codices include tables that predict eclipses centuries in advance. Why such focus on the heavens? Part of the answer lies in survival, the need to time planting and harvesting. But there is something deeper. The cosmos was viewed as a living entity, a grand clockwork whose cycles affected the fate of humanity itself. The heavens were both guide and guardian. The ancient Egyptians, Babylonians, and Chinese all recorded observations of planetary motions with incredible precision, tracking the movements of Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn over decades and centuries. They noticed cyclical patterns, retrogrades, and alignments. Embedding this knowledge in myth and temple design, this suggests an awareness that celestial events might herald changes on Earth, both physical and spiritual. Floods, droughts, wars, and cultural shifts were often linked to planetary alignments and cycles. Modern astronomy confirms that Earth undergoes slow, long-term changes known as Milankovitch cycles, which influence climate over tens of thousands of years. Could the ancients have observed echoes of these patterns? The alignment of structures like the Great Serpent Mound in Ohio or the megaliths at Nabta Playa in Egypt, oriented to specific stars or solstices, hints at an awareness of these grand cycles. Even more intriguing are star maps found carved into stone tablets and cave walls worldwide. The Lascaux caves in France contain depictions of animal figures that some scholars interpret as star constellations, suggesting that prehistoric humans were mapping the night sky tens of thousands of years ago. In Australia, Aboriginal rock art includes representations of the emu in the sky, a dark constellation visible during certain times of the year, used to mark seasons and guide hunting and gathering. These traditions, passed orally for millennia, represent one of the longest continuous astronomical heritages known. Ancient Mesopotamian tablets reveal early star charts and records of celestial omens. The Babylonians practiced astrological divination, linking celestial movements to earthly events with astonishing detail. Their system laid the groundwork for Western astrology, blending astronomy and myth into a complex worldview. Despite this widespread evidence, the level of precision in many ancient astronomical sites is astounding. Many alignments are accurate to within a fraction of a degree, often reflecting knowledge that should have required instruments and calculations far beyond what is assumed for the time. How did they achieve this? Without telescopes, computers, or even the modern concept of gravity. Ancient astronomers built observatories using sheer observation, patience, and meticulous record-keeping. Some had sightlines aligned to mountain peaks or distant horizons that marked the sun's position during solstices. Others used wooden or stone instruments to track star movements, compiling data across generations. But there are more mysterious aspects as well. Some ancient texts describe star systems that do not exist, or that have changed dramatically over time, raising the possibility that their knowledge was passed down from an earlier epoch, or even another source. Moreover, some ancient cultures spoke of visitors from the stars, or beings who taught humanity, astronomy, and science. The Sumerians worshipped gods, called the Anunnaki, often interpreted in modern times as extraterrestrial beings who descended from the heavens to guide human progress. While controversial and speculative, these myths underscore the reverence ancient people had for the sky, and their belief in a connection between the cosmos and earthly life. In essence, ancient astronomy was not just about tracking planets and stars. It was a form of cosmology, a way to understand the universe and humanity's place within it. It blended science, spirituality, and governance. Kings claimed divine right through celestial endorsement, and temples were built to embody cosmic order. The legacy of this knowledge endures in the ruins, and relics scattered around the globe, monuments to an ancient dialogue between humanity and the stars. They remind us that from the earliest days, humans looked upward not only in wonder but with intent, seeking to decode the heavens, to measure time, to find meaning. As modern science continues to uncover the mechanics of the cosmos, it often finds itself echoing the insights of these ancient observers, proof that our ancestors were not as primitive as once believed, but rather sophisticated, curious, and deeply connected to the vast universe that surrounds us. Beneath the shifting tides of the world's oceans lies a submerged realm largely unexplored, a watery graveyard of cities, temples, and monuments lost to the slow but relentless rise of sea levels. For centuries, these underwater ruins have sparked curiosity, wonder, and controversy, challenging the accepted timelines of human civilization and suggesting that entire cultures once thrived where now only waves and coral remain. One of the most famous examples is the ancient city discovered off the coast of Yonaguni, Japan. In 1986, a local diver named Kihachiro Aratake stumbled upon massive underwater formations near the southernmost Ryukyu Islands. At first glance, the structures appeared to be natural rock formations, sharp-edged terraces, and staircases. But further investigation revealed distinct patterns: straight edges, right angles, flat platforms, and even what seemed like steps and walls. The site, dubbed the Yanaguni Monument. Measures over 600 feet in length and rises nearly 90 feet from the seabed. Debate rages over whether Yanaguni is a natural geological formation or the remnants of a prehistoric man-made city. Those who argue for human origin point to the precise angles, carving marks, and architectural patterns that resemble terraces and roads. If it is man-made, the site would predate known civilizations by thousands of years, potentially rewriting the history of early human settlement in the region across the Atlantic Ocean. Off the coast of Cuba, sonar imaging has revealed the existence of submerged structures that appear to be artificial. Large stone blocks, arranged in grid-like patterns, stairways, and pyramid-shaped formations lie beneath the sea near the town of Guanajuato. Radiocarbon dating of coral growth on the stones suggests these structures may be as old as 6,000 to 10,000 years, significantly predating the known civilizations of the Americas in India. The ancient city of Dwarka, mentioned in the Hindu epic Mahabharata, was long thought to be myth. But underwater archaeological explorations off the coast of Gujarat have uncovered remnants of an ancient settlement submerged beneath the Arabian Sea. Stone walls, streets, and artifacts dating back over 5,000 years have been found, giving to the idea that Dwarka was a real city, now lost to the sea. The existence of these submerged sites aligns with geological evidence that sea levels have risen dramatically since the last ice age, around 12,000 years ago. Vast coastal plains, once fertile and populated, were inundated by melting glaciers and shifting tectonic plates. The descendants of these early inhabitants were forced inland or to higher ground, carrying fragments of their cultures and knowledge with them. These submerged cities challenge the traditional narrative that advanced civilization arose only after humans settled on stable, dry land. Instead, they suggest that maritime cultures, seafarers, traders, and builders flourished along coasts and rivers long before the rise of the great river valley civilizations of Mesopotamia, Egypt, and the Indus Valley. The ancient mythologies often speak of floods and lost lands. Plato's Atlantis, perhaps the most famous legend, describes a powerful island nation swallowed by the sea in a single day and night. While Atlantis has never been definitively located, many scholars suggest it may be a memory of real events, sea level rises that erased coastal settlements. Similarly, the story of the biblical flood in the Book of Genesis has parallels in Sumerian, Babylonian, and other ancient texts, each describing great deluges that reshaped the world and its peoples. These myths may be cultural memories of the same events, passed down through generations in symbolic form. The underwater ruins also reveal advanced architectural techniques that challenge our assumptions about prehistoric societies. At the submerged city near the coast of Alexandria, Egypt, known as Heracleion or Thonis, archaeologists have uncovered massive granite columns, statues, and temples dating back to the 6th century BCE. The city was a thriving port before it sank beneath the Mediterranean, after a series of earthquakes and tsunamis. The preservation of these structures underwater provides a window into the urban planning and artistry of ancient Mediterranean civilizations. Moreover, the discovery of ancient harbors and quays beneath the sea in various locations suggests complex maritime networks existed thousands of years ago, enabling trade, cultural exchange, and technological diffusion. The challenges in exploring these submerged sites are immense. Underwater archaeology requires sophisticated technologies, sonar mapping, remotely operated vehicles, and diving equipment. The degradation of materials over millennia complicates interpretation. However, as technology advances, more such discoveries are coming to light, slowly filling in the missing chapters of human history. The implications are profound. If entire cities and cultures existed along now submerged coasts, then the cradle of civilization may be far older and broader than previously thought. The familiar timeline of history, centered on river valleys and inland cities, may be only part of the story. This also reshapes our understanding of ancient migrations, technology, and cultural development. Maritime skills, navigation, shipbuilding, and oceanic travel may have been known and practiced tens of thousands of years ago, facilitating the spread of ideas and peoples across vast distances. Such knowledge might explain how similar architectural motifs, mythologies, and technologies appear in distant parts of the world. If early civilizations were connected by sea routes long before recorded history, the diffusion of culture and science takes on new dimensions. The submerged ruins whisper to us of a world lost to the tides but not forgotten. They remind us that history is layered and complex, often hidden beneath waves, sands, and time. They invite us to rethink our origins and to question what else might lie beneath the ocean's depths, waiting to be discovered. The story of ancient metallurgy and engineering is a saga of ingenuity that continues to astonish scholars and engineers alike. Across the ancient world, civilizations crafted materials and built structures with techniques that challenge modern understanding, blurring the line between primitive craftsmanship and advanced technology. One of the most perplexing examples comes from the ancient Indian subcontinent, where the iron pillar of Delhi stands as a testament to metallurgical prowess, erected over 1,600 years ago. This pillar, towering over 7 meters tall and weighing more than 6 tons, has remained virtually free from corrosion despite centuries of exposure to the elements. In an environment that would normally induce heavy rusting, the pillar resists decay thanks to its unique composition. A high phosphorus content combined with the iron itself creates a protective passive film that prevents oxidation. This phenomenon puzzled metallurgists worldwide, as similar alloys and corrosion-resistant techniques were only rediscovered in modern times. How did ancient smiths achieve such precise control of materials without the tools and chemical knowledge we rely on today? Was it trial and error over generations, or did they possess lost knowledge? Further south, the craftsmanship of the Damascus steel swords of the Middle Ages continues to mystify researchers. These blades were famed for their strength, flexibility, and the distinctive watery patterns etched onto their surfaces. Made from wood steel, an advanced alloy produced in India and Sri Lanka centuries ago, Damascus steel's production methods were lost over time. Modern metallurgists have struggled to replicate the exact properties and aesthetics of these swords, which were said to be capable of cutting through lesser blades and even slicing through armor. But metallurgy was not just about creating sharp weapons or rust-resistant pillars. It was also about shaping colossal structures that defy the limits of human labor and technology. Take the Great Pyramid of Giza. the sheer scale of its construction over 2 million limestone blocks, some weighing up to 80 tons, raises questions about how these materials were quarried, transported, and assembled with such precision. The common explanation involves large labor forces using simple tools and ramps, but the exact methods remain a topic of debate. Some theories propose sophisticated mechanical systems, including counterweights, levers, and pulleys, or even the use of water to lubricate and float blocks. In South America, the city of Machu Picchu and the surrounding Incan constructions showcase masterful stonework. The stones fit together so tightly that even a knife blade cannot slip between them, yet there is no use of mortar. Some stones weigh several tons and were transported over rough mountainous terrain without the wheel or draft animals. The precision with which they were cut and assembled has led to speculation about lost technologies or knowledge techniques passed down through generations and perhaps inspired by observation of natural fracturing patterns. Even more enigmatic is the ancient site of Baalbek in Lebanon, where the foundations of the Roman temple complex rest upon enormous stone blocks known as the trilith. Each of these 3 blocks weighs an estimated 800 to 1,000 tons, among the heaviest stones ever used in construction. How such massive stones were quarried, moved, and placed with such accuracy remains a mystery. The absence of clear tool marks and the lack of modern machinery from that era raise questions about ancient engineering methods. Similar feats appear at Puma Punku in Bolivia, part of the Tiwanaku complex, where intricately carved stones fit together with extreme precision, often with complex interlocking joints. The stones display cuts and angles that would challenge modern equipment, and their alignment suggests advanced knowledge of geometry and measurement. The ancient Egyptians also demonstrated remarkable engineering in their temples and obelisks. The unfinished obelisk in Aswan, if completed, would have weighed over 1,000 tons. Carved from a single granite block, it was meant to be transported over 600 kilometers to its destination in Luxor. The challenges of quarrying, moving, and erecting such a monolith with ancient tools and manpower are staggering. One must also consider the ancient concrete used by the Romans, which modern scientists have only recently begun to understand. Roman concrete, particularly that used in underwater structures like ports and aqueducts, exhibits a longevity and durability far exceeding many modern concretes. Studies revealed that it contains volcanic ash that reacts with seawater to strengthen the material over time, a self-healing property that keeps the structures intact for over 2 millennia. This combination of materials, science, engineering, and practical application demonstrates a profound empirical knowledge. Roman engineers were able to create infrastructure that would last for thousands of years, using natural materials and techniques optimized through experience. Yet, beyond these well-documented achievements, some ancient artifacts hint at even more advanced metallurgy. The so-called Coso artifact, discovered in California in 1961, was initially believed to be a 500,000-year-old spark plug encased in rock, though later research questioned its dating and nature. The artifact sparked debates about ancient technological capabilities and the possible loss of knowledge over vast spans of time. Likewise, the Lycurgus cup, a Roman glass artifact from the 4th century CE, contains nanoparticles of gold and silver that cause it to change color depending on the light source. A nanotechnology effect only understood by scientists in the 20th century. How did ancient artisans create such a complex material without microscopes or modern chemistry? These examples reveal that ancient peoples were not merely artisans, but innovators. Their understanding of materials, structure, and science was often far ahead of their time. However, as history progressed, much of this knowledge was lost due to war, cultural collapse, and shifting political powers. The destruction of libraries, such as the Library of Alexandria, erased countless records. Oral traditions faded, and technologies fell into obscurity. Today, scientists and historians strive to reconstruct these ancient methods, piecing together clues from artifacts, texts, and structures. The field of archaeometallurgy has grown, revealing a picture of human ingenuity that refuses to conform to a simplistic narrative of linear progress. Indeed, the ancient world challenges us to reconsider our assumptions. The rust-proof pillars, the perfectly cut stones, the nanotech glass, they are evidence of a civilization capable of astonishing technological feats. Whether this knowledge was developed independently, inherited from even earlier cultures, or influenced by unknown forces remains an open question. What is clear, however, is that the past holds mysteries that continue to inspire wonder. The engineering and metallurgy of antiquity are not relics of a forgotten era, but keys to understanding humanity's enduring capacity for creativity, innovation, and mastery over the material world. Throughout the centuries, the quest to heal the human body has been a profound and universal endeavor. Ancient civilizations, long before the advent of modern medicine, developed intricate systems of healing that combined empirical observation, herbal knowledge, surgical skill, and spiritual practice. These ancient medical traditions were often far more sophisticated than we tend to assume, revealing a deep understanding of anatomy, physiology, and the intricate relationship between mind, body, and environment. One of the most remarkable centers of ancient medical knowledge was in India, where Ayurveda emerged as a comprehensive system of medicine thousands of years ago. Rooted in the Vedas, the sacred texts of Hinduism, Ayurveda approaches health as a balance of bodily energies, or dose, Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. These principles governed not only physical health, but also mental and spiritual well-being. Treatments included herbal remedies, dietary guidelines, massage, meditation, and detoxification processes. Many of the plants used in Ayurvedic medicine, such as turmeric, neem, and ashwagandha, have been validated by modern science for their therapeutic properties. Ayurveda also included surgical techniques, documented in ancient texts like the Samhita, attributed to the physician Sushruta, often called the father of surgery. This text describes procedures ranging from rhinoplasty nose reconstruction to cataract removal and the use of various surgical instruments. The precision and detail in these surgical descriptions rival much later medical treatises, indicating a highly developed knowledge of human anatomy and surgical practice. Parallel to Ayurveda, traditional Chinese medicine (TCM) developed a complex system based on the flow of qi, or vital energy, through channels known as meridians. This system incorporated acupuncture, herbal medicine, massage, and dietary therapy. The ancient Chinese mastered pulse diagnosis, identifying different qualities of the pulse to assess internal imbalances. Texts like the Huangdi Neijing Yellow Emperor's Inner Canon outlined detailed physiological theories that guided diagnosis and treatment. Archaeological discoveries have uncovered evidence of ancient surgeries performed with remarkable skill. In Peru, trepanation, the surgical removal of a piece of the skull, was practiced thousands of years ago. Remarkably, many patients survived these procedures, as evidenced by healed bone around the surgical sites. The reasons for varied, from relieving intracranial pressure to spiritual or ritualistic purposes. But the procedure itself speaks to an advanced understanding of human anatomy and healing. Ancient Egyptians, too, were pioneers in medicine. Their medical papyri, such as the Edwin Smith Papyrus and the Ebers Papyrus, contain detailed descriptions of injuries, diseases, and treatments. The Edwin Smith Papyrus is particularly notable for its systematic and rational approach, describing wounds and fractures with clinical detail, prognosis, and treatment recommendations. It reveals an empirical approach to medicine that prioritized observation and practical intervention over superstition. Moreover, Egyptian physicians practiced dentistry, set broken bones, and performed surgeries. They used various natural substances for its antiseptic properties, molds for treating infections, and plant extracts for pain relief. The intertwining of medicine and magic was common, but their medical texts show an impressive degree of scientific rigor. In ancient Greece, Hippocrates is often credited as the father of Western medicine, advocating a rational, observational approach to health and disease. His Hippocratic corpus emphasized the importance of diet, environment, and lifestyle in maintaining health. The famous Hippocratic Oath laid ethical foundations for medical practice that endured today. The Greeks also contributed to anatomy and physiology through figures like Galen, whose work dominated medicine for centuries. Galen's extensive dissections, primarily of animals, informed theories about the circulatory, nervous, and muscular systems. Though some errors persisted, his influence shaped medical knowledge well into the Renaissance. Across the ancient world, healing was not merely a physical process but a spiritual one. Shamans, priests, and healers often acted as intermediaries between the earthly and the divine. Rituals, chants, and prayers accompanied treatments, reflecting a holistic worldview in which illness could stem from spiritual imbalance, curses, or malevolent forces. This integration of spirituality and medicine is visible in the ancient Mesopotamian Diagnostic Handbook, which combined clinical observation with divination. Physicians were also exorcists, using incantations and amulets to combat disease-causing spirits. The Mayan civilization had healers known as Amen, who used herbal remedies, rituals, and knowledge of astronomy to diagnose and treat illnesses. Their codices include extensive botanical knowledge and instructions for healing ceremonies, reflecting an intertwined relationship between nature, cosmos, and health. Despite the deep wisdom embedded in these traditions, much ancient medical knowledge was lost or suppressed over time. The fall of empires, destruction of libraries, and shifts in cultural paradigms led to interruptions in the transmission of knowledge. Today, modern science is rediscovering and validating many ancient remedies and practices. Pharmacology often traces the origins of drugs to traditional herbal medicines. Techniques such as acupuncture and meditation have gained acceptance for their efficacy. Even ancient surgical practices inform contemporary techniques. The medical wisdom of antiquity challenges the notion that science and spirituality are inherently opposed. Instead, it reveals a complex synthesis, one that recognizes the physical body as inseparable from mind and spirit. In reflecting on these ancient discoveries, we glimpse a profound truth. Humanity's quest for health and healing is as old as civilization itself, rooted in careful observation, experimentation, and a deep respect for the interconnectedness of life. Language is the lifeblood of culture, the vessel of thought, and the cornerstone of civilization. Yet, the origins of written language remain one of humanity's deepest mysteries. Ancient scripts, some undeciphered, others partially understood, messages from distant epochs, often revealing advanced communication systems, coded knowledge, and cryptic symbols that continue to puzzle linguists, historians, and cryptographers. The earliest known writing systems emerged independently in various regions of the world. In Mesopotamia, cuneiform script developed around 3200 BCE, etched into clay tablets by the Sumerians. These wedge-shaped impressions began as pictographs, but evolved into complex ideograms and phonetic signs capable of expressing nuanced language, law, trade, and literature. The epic tales, administrative records, and scientific observations inscribed in cuneiform mark one of the earliest known intellectual traditions. Simultaneously, in ancient Egypt, hieroglyphs took shape, an intricate system of symbols combining logograms, phonograms, and hieroglyphic writing adorned temple walls, papyrus scrolls, and monuments, encoding religious texts, royal decrees, and historical chronicles. Its decipherment in the 19th century, unlocked by the Rosetta Stone, opened vast vistas into Egypt's past, but beyond these well-studied scripts lie enigmatic writings whose meanings remain elusive. The Indus Valley Civilization, flourishing from roughly 2600 to 1900 BCE in present-day Pakistan and northwest India, left behind thousands of inscribed seals and tablets, bearing a script that defies decipherment. The symbols composed of abstract shapes and animal motifs appear repeatedly, but the lack of bilingual texts or longer inscriptions hinders translation efforts. Whether the Indus script represents a full language, a proto-writing system, or symbolic shorthand remains a topic of heated debate. The mystery deepens with the Rongo-Rongo script of Easter Island. Discovered in the 19th century, these glyphs carved into wooden tablets have resisted definitive interpretation. The language, possibly a form of proto-writing or mnemonic device, is tied to a culture famous for its massive stone statues, the Moai. The potential loss of linguistic heritage, perhaps due to population collapse and cultural disruption, leaves the Rongo-Rongo script a tantalizing enigma. Equally baffling are the Linear/A and Linear B scripts from ancient Crete. Linear B was deciphered in the 1950s, revealing an early form of Greek used by the Mycenaeans for palace records. Linear A, however, remains undeciphered, representing the writing of the Minoan civilization. Its symbols resemble Linear B, but do not correspond to known languages, suggesting an unknown linguistic tradition wiped out by subsequent conquests. These undeciphered scripts hint at advanced communication systems, potentially encoding religious rites, governance, commerce, or esoteric knowledge. Their loss underscores the fragility of cultural memory and the impact of societal upheaval in parallel. Pictographs and petroglyphs found worldwide, etched into cave walls and rock faces, offer glimpses into prehistoric communication. Sites such as Lascaux in France or Altamira in Spain reveal symbolic imagery that may represent early attempts to convey stories, record events, or invoke spiritual power. Whether these constitute true language or proto-writing remains contested, but their complexity suggests an intellectual capacity far beyond mere decoration. The question arises: how did writing arise, and what role did it play in these ancient societies? Writing enabled the codification of laws, transmission of knowledge across generations, and the administration of complex economies and states. It was a tool of power and control, as well as a means to preserve culture and identity. Intriguingly, some ancient texts suggest that writing itself was considered a divine gift. The Sumerians attributed its invention to the god Enki, while Egyptian myths credit the god Thoth. These attributions emphasize the sacred nature of language as a bridge between the mortal and divine. The development of alphabetic systems further revolutionized communication. The Phoenicians are credited with creating one of the first alphabets around 50 BCE, a simplified system of symbols representing individual sounds rather than complex ideas. This innovation facilitated literacy, trade, and cultural exchange. Across the Mediterranean, from Phoenician roots grew the Greek alphabet, which in turn influenced Latin, Cyrillic, and many modern scripts. This evolutionary chain demonstrates how writing adapts and transforms, reflecting the dynamism of human culture. However, the origins of language itself, the transition from oral traditions to written scripts, remain shrouded in mystery. Many ancient cultures relied on oral storytelling, poetry, and mnemonic devices to preserve history and knowledge. The transition to writing was gradual, and in some cultures, both oral and written traditions coexisted for centuries. In some cases, writing was reserved for elite priests, scribes, rulers, forming a barrier between knowledge and the general populace. This exclusivity allowed for the control and manipulation of information, shaping societal hierarchies. Decoding ancient scripts is a painstaking endeavor, requiring linguistic insight, historical context, and sometimes luck. The successful decipherment of Egyptian hieroglyphs and Linear B stands as testament to human perseverance and interdisciplinary collaboration. Yet, the undeciphered scripts remind us that much of the past remains inaccessible, locked behind symbols, and languages lost to time. These mysteries challenge modern scholars to rethink assumptions about literacy, communication, and the flow of knowledge in antiquity. They invite us to imagine worlds where writing was not merely a practical tool but a sacred art, a cipher to hidden wisdom, or a link to realms beyond. In decoding these ancient scripts, we do more than read words. We listen to voices from ages past, striving to bridge millennia and reconnect with the origins of human expression. The world is dotted with megalithic monuments, stone structures erected thousands of years ago, that continue to captivate and confound. Their sheer scale, precise construction, and mysterious purposes hint at sophisticated knowledge and cultural practices that modern understanding struggles to fully explain. These colossal stones, arranged in circles, alignments, and imposing edifices, serve as silent witnesses to ancient society's mastery over stone, space, and the cosmos. Stonehenge, the iconic prehistoric monument in southern England, exemplifies these enigmas, built in multiple stages over a millennium. Beginning around 3000 BCE, Stonehenge consists of massive sarsen stones topped by horizontal lintels carefully arranged in a circular pattern. The stones weigh up to 25 tons each, transported from quarries many miles away. The question of how prehistoric people moved and assembled such heavy blocks without modern machinery remains a puzzle. More intriguing is the monument's precise astronomical alignment. The central axis of Stonehenge points toward the sunrise on the summer solstice and sunset on the winter solstice. This suggests its builders had an acute awareness of solar cycles, using the monument as a calendar or ceremonial site to mark seasonal transitions critical for agriculture and ritual. Surrounding Stonehenge is an extensive complex of earthworks, burial mounds, and smaller stone circles, indicating the site's importance as a spiritual and social hub far to the north. The Callanish stones on the Isle of Lewis in Scotland present another ancient megalithic mystery. This stone circle, dating to around 2900 BCE, is aligned with lunar cycles, possibly functioning as a lunar observatory. Its layout, with standing stones radiating from a central monolith, evokes celestial symbolism and suggests a complex cosmological understanding. The Carnac stones in Brittany, France, are among the most extensive megalithic sites globally. Thousands of standing stonesmen here's are arranged in long rows, with alignments extending over several kilometers. Their purpose remains debated, with theories ranging from astronomical observatories to religious processional paths. The effort required to erect and align these stones underscores the cultural importance of the site. In the Mediterranean, the megalithic temples of Malta, such as Kugar, Kim, and Najdra, showcase extraordinary craftsmanship. Built between 360 and 2500 BCE, these temples feature massive limestone blocks carved with intricate spirals, altars, and statues. Their architectural sophistication, including corbelled roofing and precise orientation to solstices, indicates advanced engineering and religious significance. Further east, the Göbekli Tepe site in southeastern Turkey redefines the timeline of megalithic construction, dated to around 9600 BCE. It predates Stonehenge by over 6,000 years and challenges conventional views of prehistoric societies. Göbekli Tepe consists of massive T-shaped stone pillars arranged in circles, many carved, with reliefs of animals and symbols. The site appears to have served as a ceremonial center for hunter-gatherers before the advent of agriculture, suggesting that complex social and religious structures existed much earlier than previously believed. The craftsmanship at Göbekli Tepe, with intricately carved pillars weighing up to 20 tons, indicates remarkable skills in quarrying, carving, and erecting megaliths. This challenges the assumption that such monumental construction required settled, Agricultural societies thought the purpose of megalithic monuments often intertwines with celestial phenomena. Many structures exhibit alignments to solstices, equinoxes, and specific star risings. This suggests that ancient peoples tracked time through the heavens, using stone monuments as calendars to regulate agricultural cycles and religious festivals. Yet, beyond their astronomical functions, megaliths often carry profound symbolic and spiritual meanings. The act of moving and erecting massive stones may have served as a communal ritual, reinforcing social cohesion and cultural identity. Some researchers propose that megalithic sites encode sacred geometry, mathematical ratios and shapes, believed to hold cosmic significance. The recurring use of circles, spirals, and alignments hint at an ancient understanding of harmony and order. The origins of megalithic construction techniques remain debated. How did prehistoric peoples quarry, transport, and precisely position stones weighing multiple tons using only rudimentary tools? Experimental archaeology has attempted to replicate these feats using wooden sledges, ropes, rollers, and manpower, demonstrating possible methods but also revealing the immense effort required. Some theories propose lost technologies or knowledge, possibly inherited from earlier civilizations or advanced cultures now vanished. The precise shaping and fitting of stones, such as at Machu Picchu or Baalbek, add further mystery. Megalithic monuments also appear globally. From the Moai statues of Easter Island, carved from volcanic rock and transported across the island, to the stone circles of Nabta Playa in Egypt's desert, aligned with stars and marking prehistoric calendars. These global parallels raise questions about cultural diffusion or independent invention. Did ancient cultures share knowledge across vast distances through migration, trade, or other means? Or did similar human responses to nature and the cosmos lead to convergent development of megalithic traditions? The enduring mystery of megaliths challenges modern perspectives on prehistoric societies, revealing that ancient peoples possessed sophisticated scientific knowledge, engineering skills, and spiritual vision. Their monuments stand not only as architectural achievements but as symbols of humanity's timeless quest to understand the universe and our place within it. Maps are among humanity's oldest tools for understanding and navigating the world. Yet some ancient maps challenge the conventional timeline of exploration and geographical knowledge. These enigmatic artifacts suggest that prehistoric civilizations may have possessed remarkable cartographic skills and a global awareness far beyond what historians once believed possible. One of the most famous ancient maps is the Piri Reis map. Created in 1513 by the Ottoman admiral and cartographer Piri Reis, drawn on a piece of gazelle skin parchment. This map depicts parts of Europe, Africa, and remarkably, the coastline of South America with surprising accuracy. What makes it extraordinary is the inclusion of details that some researchers argue reflect knowledge of the Antarctic coast. Despite Antarctica being officially discovered centuries later, the origins of the information used by Piri Reis remain mysterious. He claimed to have compiled his map from over 20 older charts and sources, some dating back to Alexander the Great's era, though the authenticity and accuracy of these sources are debated. The precision of coastlines, especially of South America, and possible Antarctic features, raises the question: could ancient mariners have explored regions long before recorded history? The Orontius Phineas map, drawn in 1531, similarly depicts Antarctica's coastline free of ice, suggesting knowledge of the continent's topography unknown to modern explorers until the 20th century. Whether these maps are speculative, copied from lost sources, or products of early exploration remains a topic of intrigue beyond Europe and the Ottoman Empire. Ancient maps from other cultures also hint at advanced geographical knowledge. The Babylonian world map, dating from the 6th century BCE, portrays a simplified worldview with Babylon at the center, surrounded by a circular bitter river and various regions. While schematic, it reflects an attempt to conceptualize the known world. In ancient China, cartographers produced detailed maps of rivers, mountains, and cities. The Mawangdui silk map from the Han Dynasty circa 2nd century BCE is one of the oldest surviving topographic maps, illustrating the complex understanding of terrain and spatial relationships. Another remarkable artifact is the Catalhoyuk Wall mural in Turkey, believed by some to represent a volcanic eruption with a map-like depiction of the surrounding landscape. This suggests that even in Neolithic times, humans encoded environmental information in visual form. What truly astonishes scholars are artifacts like the Nabra sky disk, discovered in Germany and dated to around 1600 BCE, though not a map in the conventional sense. It is a celestial map depicting the sun, moon, stars, and possibly the Pleiades cluster, used for calendrical and navigational purposes. It underscores the integration of celestial and terrestrial navigation in ancient cultures. The ability to navigate vast oceans and map coastlines implies advanced maritime knowledge. Polynesian navigators mastered open ocean, voyaging across the Pacific using stars, waves, birds, and wind patterns long before Europeans ventured into these waters. Their mental maps, passed orally and practiced over centuries, guided the settlement of thousands of islands, a remarkable feat of human ingenuity. Even earlier, the seafaring abilities of ancient Egyptians, Phoenicians, and Greeks allowed exploration of the Mediterranean and beyond. The Phoenicians, in particular, are believed to have circumnavigated Africa around 600 BCE, a journey documented by Herodotus, but corroborated with archaeological clues. Such voyages would require sophisticated understanding of currents, wind, and celestial navigation. The enigmatic Antikythera mechanism, discovered in a Roman shipwreck near Greece, adds another layer to this narrative. Dating to around 100 BCE, this intricate device is often described as an ancient analog computer, capable of predicting celestial positions, eclipses, and calendrical cycles. Its complexity suggests that ancient mariners and astronomers had precise instruments aiding navigation and timekeeping. The implication is profound. Ancient peoples may have combined astronomical observation, advanced engineering, and exploratory voyages to map the world with surprising accuracy. However, many ancient maps, like the Vinland map purportedly showing parts of North America, have sparked controversy regarding authenticity, interpretation, and origin. Scholars continue to debate the extent of early knowledge and how such information was transmitted or preserved. The mystery deepens when considering possible lost civilizations, cultures whose advanced geographical knowledge may have vanished with their demise, leaving behind fragments encoded in maps, myths, and archaeological remains. Could there have been a shared global repository of cartographic knowledge, exchanged across continents through trade, migration, or other means? The presence of similar symbols, mapping techniques, and nautical instruments in distant cultures supports the possibility of early transcontinental connections. Ancient navigation and mapping remind us that humanity's desire to understand, explore, and record the world is a constant thread through history. These early cartographers were pioneers, charting unknown territories with limited tools, driven by curiosity and necessity. Their maps, whether drawn on parchment, carved in stone, or memorized through oral tradition, reveal a sophisticated comprehension of geography that often exceeds expectations. The puzzle of ancient maps invites us to rethink the timeline of human exploration and technological development, acknowledging that the boundaries of our ancestors' knowledge may have been far broader than previously imagined. As modern science uncovers and interprets these relics, we gain not only insights into ancient geography, but also into the enduring human spirit of discovery. From the earliest days of human society, ritual and religion have been fundamental forces shaping culture, identity, and community. Across continents and millennia, ancient peoples crafted sacred ceremonies, symbolism, and mythologies that intertwined with every aspect of life, governing social order, explaining the cosmos, and offering pathways to the divine. These rituals and religious practices carry profound mysteries, revealing lost worlds of meaning and connection. At the heart of many ancient religions lay the belief in a cosmos alive with spirits, gods, and forces beyond human control. Natural phenomena, thunderstorms, eclipses, seasonal cycles were perceived as expressions of divine will or cosmic rhythms. Rituals served as bridges between humans and these forces, offering appeasement, guidance, or communion. Consider the elaborate funerary rites of ancient Egypt. The Egyptians believed in an afterlife where the soul journeyed through perilous realms before achieving eternal life. Tombs were filled with spells, amulets, and artifacts to protect the deceased. The Book of the Dead, a collection of magical texts, guided souls through judgment by Osiris and the weighing of the heart. The Grand Pyramids themselves were not merely tombs but cosmic machines designed to facilitate this journey, aligned with stars representing immortality and rebirth. Similarly, the Mayan civilization wove complex rituals into their calendar system. Ceremonies marked solar and lunar cycles, agricultural seasons, and political events. Bloodletting rituals, human sacrifices, and offerings to gods such as Kukulkan and Chak sought to maintain cosmic balance and ensure prosperity. The sacred ball game, played with ritual significance, symbolized the struggle between life and death, light and darkness in Mesopotamia. Temples known as ziggurats rose as mountains of the gods, places where priests conducted rituals to sustain divine favor. The Anunnaki celestial deities were central figures in myth and worship. Rituals included libations, music, and offerings, aimed at maintaining order, known as Mian, the cosmos, and society. Many ancient rituals involved the use of sacred symbols and artifacts. The Ankh in Egypt represented eternal life, while the Ouroboros serpent eating its tail symbolized cyclical renewal. These motifs appeared in art, jewelry, and architecture, encoding spiritual concepts. The mystery deepens when examining prehistoric rituals, such as those indicated by cave paintings and megalithic sites. At Göbekli Tepe, the massive carved pillars suggest ritual gatherings focused on animal symbolism and cosmic themes, perhaps representing the earliest known organized religious site. The labor invested in constructing these monuments implies the centrality of ritual in forging social cohesion. In ancient China, the rites of the Zhou dynasty codified social and cosmic order through elaborate ceremonies involving music, dance, and sacrifice. The mandate of heaven concept linked political legitimacy to divine approval, reinforcing the ruler's role as intermediary. The power of ritual extended beyond religion into governance and law. Sacred oaths, coronations, and public ceremonies reinforced authority, social hierarchy, and collective identity. Yet many rituals included elements now lost or misunderstood. The Eleusinian mysteries of ancient Greece, secret rites held annually, promised initiates secret knowledge of life, death, and rebirth. The exact nature of these rites remains a mystery, as initiates were sworn to secrecy. Such mystery religions hinted at deeper spiritual experiences beyond public worship. Symbolism often transcended language. Mandalas, labyrinths, and sacred geometry encoded spiritual truths and cosmological principles. The labyrinth of Knossos in Crete, associated with the myth of the Minotaur, may symbolize the journey of the soul through complexity and darkness to enlightenment. Many rituals also involved altered states of consciousness induced through fasting, dance, music, or psychoactive substances. These experiences were viewed as gateways to the divine, visions, or ancestral realms in South America. Shamans used plants like ayahuasca to commune with spirits and heal communities. Similar practices appear worldwide, suggesting a universal human impulse to transcend ordinary perception through ritual. Religious symbolism, often linked to natural cycles, the sun's journey, moon phases, fertility, death, and renewal. Temples and monuments oriented toward celestial events encoded this symbolism physically. Over time, many ancient rituals were suppressed, transformed, or absorbed by newer religions and cultures. Yet, traces survive in folklore, festivals, and sacred architecture. The mystery of ancient ritual and religion lies not only in their practices but in their profound impact on human civilization. They shaped moral codes, inspired art, governed social structures, and provided frameworks for understanding existence. These rituals embody humanity's eternal search for meaning and connection to forces beyond the visible world. They invite us to explore the depths of belief, the power of symbol, and the enduring human spirit. Trade has been a driving force behind the growth and development of civilizations since the dawn of human society. The exchange of goods, ideas, technologies, and culture across vast distances shaped ancient worlds in ways that still resonate today. Remarkably, archaeological and historical evidence reveals that extensive trade networks connected disparate regions long before modern globalization, facilitating a mysterious flow of commodities and knowledge. One of the earliest and most famous trade networks was the Silk Road, spanning thousands of miles from China to the Mediterranean. Established around the 2nd century BCE, this complex system of land and sea routes enabled merchants to transport silk, spices, precious metals, and artworks between East and West. The Silk Road was not merely a commercial highway. It was a conduit for ideas, religions such as Buddhism and Christianity, technological innovations, and artistic styles. However, the concept of interconnectedness stretches even further back in time. The ancient city of Ur in Mesopotamia thrived on long-distance trade, importing lapis lazuli from Afghanistan, cedar wood from Lebanon, and copper from Oman. These connections demonstrate early specialization and the establishment of exchange routes spanning harsh deserts and mountain ranges across the Indian Ocean. Maritime trade flourished, linking the ports of East Africa, Arabia, India, and Southeast Asia. The ancient port of Lothal, in the Indus Valley Civilization, featured sophisticated dockyards and warehouses, facilitating commerce in beads, metals, and textiles. The monsoon winds enabled seasonal navigation, allowing ships to traverse vast stretches of ocean with surprising reliability. The mysterious presence of objects from one culture found in faraway lands speaks to the extent of these networks. For instance, carnelian beads made in India have been uncovered in Mesopotamian sites, while Egyptian faience beads appear in ancient Near Eastern tombs. The distribution of these artifacts suggests complex trade and cultural exchange mechanisms, sometimes passing through multiple intermediaries. In Central and South America, trade routes connected the Maya, Aztec, and Inca civilizations, facilitating the flow of jade, obsidian, textiles, and cacao. The Inca road system stretched thousands of miles across rugged terrain, enabling efficient communication and transport. The integration of diverse ecological zones allowed for a variety of goods to move across the empire. Even more intriguing are reports of transoceanic contacts in pre-Columbian times. Some researchers propose that African or Polynesian voyagers may have reached the Americas long before European explorers, based on linguistic similarities. Botanical evidence such as the presence of the sweet potato in Polynesia, and shared cultural traits. Ancient trade was also intimately connected with the diffusion of technology, the spread of metallurgy, agricultural crops, and writing systems often followed trade routes. For example, the wheel, bronze working, and cuneiform writing spread from Mesopotamia to neighboring regions, influencing countless cultures. Religion and ideology traveled along these routes as well. Buddhist missionaries traveled the Silk Road, establishing monasteries and spreading teachings across Central Asia and China. Similarly, Zoroastrianism and Manichaeism disseminated through trade corridors. Trade networks required sophisticated organization and infrastructure. Cities flourished as commercial hubs, with marketplaces, caravanserais, and administrative centers regulating commerce. Merchants often formed guilds and alliances to protect their interests and ensure safe passage. The economic impact of trade extended to the political realm. Control over trade routes and resources often sparked conflicts and alliances. The wealth generated by commerce fueled the rise of powerful empires, such as the Achaemenid Persians, Romans, and Mauryans. Despite their importance, many ancient trade routes remain partially obscured. Archaeologists continue to uncover evidence of lost ports, caravan trails, and shipwrecks that illuminate these networks. One such example is the discovery of Roman artifacts in India, indicating maritime trade between the Mediterranean and the subcontinent during the early centuries CE. Roman coins, pottery, and glassware found in Kerala and Tamil Nadu attest to vibrant commercial connections. Moreover, the role of the enigmatic Sea Peoples, a confederation of naval raiders who disrupted Eastern Mediterranean civilizations around 1200 BC, raises questions about maritime capabilities and intercultural contact in the Late Bronze Age. Ancient trade was also accompanied by the exchange of disease, migration, and cultural transformation, shaping the genetic and cultural landscape of populations. Understanding these ancient networks helps us appreciate the complexity and dynamism of early globalization. Far from isolated pockets, ancient civilizations were interconnected through commerce, culture, and shared knowledge. Their trade routes were not merely paths of goods, but arteries of human interaction, innovation, and transformation. These ancient commercial webs remind us that the impulse to connect, exchange, and explore is intrinsic to human nature, timeless thread woven into the fabric of history. Technology is often thought of as a product of the modern age, but the ancient world bore witness to innovations and inventions that not only laid the foundation for today's advancements but sometimes surpassed contemporary expectations. These ancient technologies reveal a forgotten ingenuity, challenging the notion that human progress has been linear and uninterrupted. One of the most astounding ancient inventions is the Antikythera mechanism, often described as the world's first analog computer. Discovered in a shipwreck off the coast of Greece in 1901 and dated to around 100 BCE. This complex device consists of interlocking bronze gears capable of predicting solar and lunar eclipses, tracking planetary cycles, and calibrating calendars. Its precision and mechanical sophistication are astonishing, with no comparable technology emerging until the Renaissance. Over a millennium later, the mystery deepens when considering who built such a device, and how the knowledge of its construction was transmitted or lost. The Antikythera mechanism exemplifies how ancient civilizations possessed advanced knowledge of astronomy, mathematics, and engineering skills often underestimated by modern scholars in ancient China. Inventions such as the seismograph attributed to Zhang Hang in the 2nd century CE demonstrate sophisticated understanding of natural phenomena. This device detected distant earthquakes by signaling the direction of tremors through the movement of bronze dragons and frogs. Its design illustrates an early form of sensor technology. Long before modern seismology, the ancient Romans engineered aqueducts, roads, and concrete structures that remain marvels of engineering. Roman concrete particularly contained volcanic ash that gave it remarkable durability, enabling the construction of the Pantheon's massive Duma feet, still unrivaled in terms of scale and stability. This material's ability to strengthen over time, especially underwater, is a natural form of self-healing, rediscovered only recently by modern scientists. Ancient hydraulic engineering also featured prominently in the works of civilizations, such as the Nabateans, who developed intricate water collection and storage systems in arid Petra. Their ability to channel and preserve water ensured urban survival in harsh desert environments. In South America, the Inca constructed vast terraces and irrigation networks high in the Andes, maximizing agricultural output in challenging terrain. Their stone masonry, resistant to earthquakes, reflects an understanding of geology and structural engineering. The ancient Egyptians mastered the construction of monumental architecture, using copper tools and ingenious methods of quarrying and moving heavy stones. The precision with which the pyramids and temples were built, with alignment to cardinal points and celestial bodies, suggests advanced surveying and planning techniques. The Baghdad Battery, discovered near modern-day Iraq and dating to the Parthian or Sassanid period, roughly 200 BCE to 650 CE, is hypothesized by some to be an ancient galvanic cella rudimentary battery capable of producing electricity. Though its purpose remains speculative, it opens possibilities about early experimentation with electrical phenomena. Ancient textiles, metallurgy, and glassmaking also reflect technological sophistication. The production of Damascus steel swords, with their characteristic patterns, required complex forging methods lost for centuries. Ancient glass artisans created colored and patterned glasswork, using techniques only recently replicated, beyond physical artifacts. Some ancient cultures developed complex algorithms and mathematical concepts. The ancient Babylonians used advanced arithmetic and geometry, evidenced in clay tablets that record calculations for astronomical phenomena. The Mayan calendar, with its intricate cycles and correlation to celestial events, demonstrates profound astronomical and mathematical insight. Moreover, some ancient civilizations may have harnessed natural phenomena for practical purposes in ways still debated today. The possibility that the Egyptians employed sound and resonance in the construction of temples, or that ancient structures incorporated principles of acoustics and energy flow, remains a topic of speculation and study. The loss and rediscovery of ancient technology underscore the fragility of human knowledge. Wars, cultural shifts, and the passing of generations have led to breaks in continuity, causing some advancements to vanish for centuries. This discontinuity invites reflection on how much ancient wisdom might still be hidden, waiting to be uncovered through archaeology and interdisciplinary research. Ancient technology challenges modern assumptions about progress, reminding us that innovation is often cyclical and that past civilizations possessed remarkable creativity and skill. These inventions are more than relics. They are testament to humanity's enduring quest to understand and shape the world. They inspire awe and humility, urging us to appreciate the depth and breadth of human achievement across the ages. As we reach the conclusion of our journey through the most mysterious ancient discoveries, we stand before a panorama of enigmas that continue to defy explanation. These mysteries serve as humbling reminders of the vastness of human history and the limits of our current understanding. They beckon us to look deeper, question established narratives, and imagine worlds that once were complex, vibrant, and sometimes inexplicably advanced. One of the most profound mysteries is the coexistence of lost civilizations, advanced societies that thrived and vanished, leaving behind tantalizing fragments. Atlantis, described by Plato as a powerful island kingdom submerged beneath the waves, has inspired countless theories, though no definitive archaeological evidence has confirmed its existence. The story resonates as a metaphor for human hubris and the impermanence of power. Some speculate Atlantis could represent a memory of ancient floods, or real cultures lost to natural disasters. Similarly, the Indus Valley Civilization, with its well-planned cities like Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa, remains enigmatic. Despite its sophistication, urban planning, standardized weights and measures, drainage systems, its script remains undeciphered. The reasons for its decline around 1900 BCE remain debated, with theories ranging from climate change to invasion or internal collapse. Unexplained artifacts continue to puzzle scholars. The so-called Baghdad Battery, mentioned earlier, prompts questions about ancient experimentation with electricity. The Dropa stones, alleged discs found in China with mysterious inscriptions, though widely dismissed as hoaxes, fuel imaginations about extraterrestrial contact. The Nazca lines in Peru are enormous geoglyphs etched into the desert, depicting animals, geometric shapes, and human figures visible only from the air. Their purpose, whether astronomical, religious, or ceremonial, remains debated. How and why ancient peoples created such precise and large-scale artworks without flight is a mystery. Stone spheres in Costa Rica, perfectly round and crafted with great precision, also defy straightforward explanation. Their function, whether markers, status symbols, or ritual objects, is unknown, and their method of production astounds even modern experts. The pyramids of Giza have long attracted wonder and speculation. Beyond their monumental scale and architectural precision, questions about their construction techniques, internal chambers, and potential hidden passages remain. Some theories propose they encode mathematical constants or astronomical data, suggesting a level of scientific knowledge that challenges conventional timelines. In addition to physical artifacts, natural phenomena intersect with ancient mystery. The sudden disappearance of the Anasazi civilization in the American Southwest, the extinction of the megafauna contemporaneous with early human migration, and unexplained climate events recorded in geological strata all invite investigation. Ancient mythologies and oral traditions often preserve echoes of these mysteries. Stories of cataclysms, gods descending from the skies, and celestial battles may encode real historical events or lost knowledge. Decoding these narratives requires balancing skepticism with openness to alternative interpretations. The ongoing discovery of underwater ruins off the coasts of Cuba, Japan, and the Mediterranean further complicates the story, hinting at submerged cities and cultures erased by rising seas or seismic activity. In recent decades, advances in technologies, imaging, ground-penetrating radar, DNA analysis have opened new frontiers in exploring these ancient enigmas. Remote sensing reveals hidden structures beneath dense jungles. Genetic studies uncover migrations and interconnections. And digital modeling reconstructs lost architectures. Yet many questions remain unanswered. Why did some civilizations flourish and vanish abruptly? What knowledge did they possess, and how was it lost? Could there have been undiscovered centers of learning or forgotten interactions between distant peoples? These unanswered questions inspire both scholarly research and popular fascination. They remind us that history is not static but a living investigation, evolving with each new find. The allure of ancient mysteries lies not only in the secrets they hold but in what they represent about the human spirit, a relentless curiosity, creativity, and desire to understand our origins. By studying these discoveries, we connect across time with the ingenuity and complexity of our ancestors, gaining perspective on our place in the continuum of human endeavor as we close this exploration. The mysteries remain an open invitation to question, to seek, and to wonder. The ancient world, though distant, continues to speak in stones, scripts, and symbols, whispering stories of civilizations that dreamed, built, and left legacies etched in time. Our task is to listen, learn, and carry forward the torch of knowledge into the future.